out. And then, it also has come to our attention that now elective surgery is something you can go ahead and do. There was a hold on that because of all the COVID engagements, but now people who had pending waiting surgeries can actually start going back. And so we're going to look into that today, in addition to many other things that are happening around the country.
Yep.
Yep.
Plus, we'll be looking ahead into the 6th of June, which is Saturday, and trying to get into the president's mind. And see, what is he going to say?
Who can go where, who can do what,
yes,
and when.
What's going to happen on the 6th of June? Now that the president already signaled that we cannot live in this state forever, let's see whether he's going to follow it up with some action. And what kind of action that's going to be.
Yep.
Right? So yesterday we shot back up to the 3 digits on new cases of COVID-19. Back to a 1, 2, 3 again.
Yeah, but however, the thing is that still testing is still quite low.
It's low.
Yeah. So it will be interesting to see how that is going to increase, or if it's going to increase.
Yeah.
Because, still low. If you don't know, you don't know. I think that was our proverb yesterday.
It is.
If you don't know, you really don't know.
If you don't know that you don't know, you will not know.
You will not know.
Yeah. And if you know that you don't know, then you will know.
Yeah, because now if you look at the number of cases that we have, then or if we're not able to, then it's hard to then plan around that. So 1, 2, 3, taking us to 2216, 2,216 cases in the country. 123 test positive for coronavirus, COVID-19 in Kenya.
Yeah.
This is what we're looking at right now. The truckers are being looked at again as, again, a hotspot for these infections.
Yep.
And then it's interesting because underlying conditions such as diabetes, asthma, hypertension, and HIV that have been linked to COVID-19 deaths make the bigger portion of patients admitted in intensive care units in Kenya. And this was the problem that they were talking about before, that if they get to a position or a state whereby more and more patients needed intensive care, then that might be a problem in terms of how the health system in Kenya is going to be able to hold that.
So how many now are in ICU?
All right, so if you look at the numbers, those in critical care... Okay, so those in critical care, I need to find that exact number. But the worrying thing here is that quite a number of them are there because of these other conditions. I need to get the exact number for you before I give wrong information, so I'll do that in a bit.
Okay. In the meantime, we saw the recovery of 54 people yesterday.
Yes.
So basically 54 had been discharged from the isolation centers and been told to go back home. 74 is the number of the people who've died so far of COVID-19. 3 more succumbed to the disease yesterday. All 3 are male, 1 from Nairobi, 2 from Nyeri. The youngest was a 12-year-old boy who tested positive posthumously, while the other 2 are 41 and 71 years of age, according to Dr. Rashid Aman. So this 12-year-old was in hospital, clearly, and passed away. And after death, that's when they decided to test. And that's when they found that, yes, he was COVID-19 positive.
Yeah.
The underlying conditions, among them diabetes, asthma, hypertension, HIV, have been linked to the COVID-19 deaths, and they make the bigger portion of patients admitted in ICU, right? That's what you said.
Right, so and 7 of them, and just looking at that number now, is
7 now in ICU.
Yes.
Okay, but they have the underlying conditions of diabetes, asthma, and hypertension, and HIV. But if we are talking about 7 out of the people who are the active cases so far, only 7 being in ICU, I think we still also just need to be grateful as well.
I think so.
Yeah, because we are not overwhelming the system. We are not overrunning the system. It's still a good sign that we still have a majority. Like Dr. Mercy Korir liked reminding us that over 80% are asymptomatic. You're testing positive, but there's absolutely nothing physiologically that's making you feel sick.
And you can actually stay home with
And
the
you can actually
symptoms.
stay home and recuperate from home. So far, tests 85,000. That is a cumulative number of tests at samples. Now, you have to remember that all these people who are discharged as well, the number of recoveries, 553. We have to think about them as give each of them 3 tests.
Yes.
So the first test to confirm positive, then the other 2 tests to confirm negative, and a minimum of at least 2. Because some of them, like the driver, test positive, negative, then you have to do another round of negative, or positive, negative, or negative, positive, until you get to negative within 24 hours. So we are talking about just the recoveries alone, or the 2,216 cases already, those are tests. So 85,000 cumulative tests is still a low figure, and I think it's still a concern. And Dr. Rashid Aman has agreed that he's going to be speaking to us about this tomorrow and telling us what are these constraints that they keep talking about. What is it that you're saying that you're not able to get the required kits?
I mean, it would be nice to have
From where?
a clear explanation of why that is the case. It doesn't make sense.
Who's that who's refusing to give you? Patia Simo.
Yeah.
Patia Simo.
Okay.
Let's talk to him
You do.
and understand exactly what's happening. Right? At 16 minutes after 6. So that's what's happening countrywide. The number of tests so far, 85,058 tests. 123 people tested positive yesterday. 54 people were discharged from the isolation and treatment facilities yesterday, bringing our total number now to 2,216. 553 have recovered. 74 people have died, unfortunately. But also, just like Dr. Masi Korir keeps saying, it would be important to know what caused the deaths of the 74. Yeah. So we need to also get into that position and ask the ministry, the government, to tell us what is it that caused the death of these 74. Maybe they ought not to have died. Maybe they didn't have to die.
True.
It was an unnecessary death. 17 minutes after 6. Let's take a look at the weather, and then the conversation continues. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, this Thursday morning, let's take a look at what's happening for weather in most parts of the country and in the world. In Nairobi, mostly cloudy conditions this morning at 14 degrees. We will see this through the day with highs of 24. Let's take a look then into Nyeri at 14 degrees, where it's mostly cloudy. It's going to be a wet afternoon with highs of 23. Nakuru will have highs of 24 today with showers in the afternoon. Eldoret will follow suit. It's cloudy this morning at 13. And forecasted thunderstorms for later on with highs of 21 and lows of 12. Kisumu looks like a mostly cloudy morning today. It will be showery in the afternoon with highs of 27 and lows of 19. Kakamega cloudy conditions at 17 degrees. Thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 24 and lows of 16. All right, let's take a look into Mombasa, where at 24 degrees, it's partly cloudy this morning. It'll be that way through the day then with highs of 30. Malindi at 26 degrees, will be a wet afternoon and probably early morning as well. 29 degrees the high and lows of 26. 19 degrees in Kampala and mostly cloudy. Rain showers expected later with highs of 26. Take a look then into Dar es Salaam, where it's 23 degrees and partly cloudy. It'll be a warm day, highs of 32. All right, take a look then down south in Johannesburg, where at 8 degrees, it'll be clear skies and sunny conditions with highs of 21 and lows of 5. Lagos, clear skies at 26 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 25. And into Paris at 14 degrees, experiencing light showers all through. At 14 degrees, it'll be a wet day, highs of 18 and lows of 11. New York at about 21 degrees currently, still on Wednesday night. And it'll be a partly cloudy day through Thursday, highs of 23 and lows of 19. And finally in London this morning at 11 degrees, it's cloudy conditions all through. Chance of rain is quite high with highs of 18 and lows of 10.
Twenty-two minutes after 6. I just got saliva going around.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Very sweet words all the time. Describe everything that you're describing, like the day. What's the word for today? Like a fantastic.
It used to be fantastic.
Today it's?
I don't know. I don't have an adjective for today. Let's see. I'll come up with one. Don't worry.
A beautiful one, right?
Yes, of course. Always. Come on.
Okay. Pegging that into today's proverb, it's from Botswana. Beautiful words will not put porridge in the pot.
So you're trying to set me up. That's what you're trying to do.
You're trying
to set me up.
Yes.
I don't blame you, Sha.
Basically, today's proverb is saying, Kizungu mingi na catwalk does not add anything.
Okay.
Beautiful words will not put porridge in the pot. Okay. So, tell us about the COVID-19 numbers globally.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're still rising and looking at about 6.5 million cases around the world, slightly above that. So, 6,568,510 COVID-19 cases with 387,957 cases of death. And about half the number of cases in the world have recovered. So still looking at that piece of good news. All right. Brazil still a cause for concern, as well as the United States, very near its 2 million mark. 1,901,783 cases is what we see in the US, and smack dab on 10% of those resulting in death, with 109,142 cases. Yesterday, do you remember that the US cases were at 106,000 in death? Today, they're at 109,000. So having realized 3,000 deaths in the US yesterday, alone.
3,000 in a day.
Yes.
That's the entire death toll in China since December to now.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, look, I know that there's a lot more happening in the US right now with all the riots and the whole racism.
It has shifted
resurge,
focus,
but
basically,
it shifted
from
focus
COVID.
completely. However, COVID is still happening, right?
Now we are at 109,000.
Yes, 109,142 deaths in the
Oh
US.
my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. Brazil continues to be a cause for concern here with 582 cases. Now we're looking at less than the numbers that we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
582 cases in the last 6 hours, whereby at this point yesterday, we think we were already at 3,000 new cases. 584,562, that's the caseload currently in Brazil. Mexico still now 4,000 cases in the last 6 hours.
Yep.
So from midnight until now. And then another worrying number is that the last 6 hours has produced 1,092 deaths in Brazil. And so those numbers are rising.
Yep,
And then we see that as an increase of numbers around the Central American belt of Bolivia, Nicaragua, Honduras. That continues to rise. Guatemala as well. Their cases continue to increase. El Salvador and such countries, because of the proximity, of course, to Central and Southern America and South America. So that continues to rise as well. Okay, so we see that there's opening of measures, or rather relaxation of measures in quite a number of countries around the world, and to see how they can now begin to open up operations, and saying that they want to be able to do this carefully and slowly. And we always say that data then is what informs decisions. And if we want to come back to Kenya, for example, whereby we don't have, truth be told, we don't have enough data to be able to then inform decisions that would be based solely on what is happening with COVID.
Maybe we do. The lack of data could also be information. Lack of data on one side could be informing something.
It's informing that you don't know. That's what it's informing.
For instance, the lack of data. Well, yeah, we don't know the exact true picture of the country in terms of COVID-19 cases. All right, but they could also be modeling. We could just also be using what they currently have. Out of 85,000 tests, how many have come out positive? That's 2,000. Where are they? We can see a huge concentration within certain metropolitan areas. Now we are seeing movement into other counties outside. That is could also be informing the decision makers and say, well, because it's still concentrated within Nairobi, let's ensure that we try and keep it as contained within Nairobi, as possible.
All right, I can see that.
Also, look at the way we were saying. Now, Kemri has data on the number of strains that we are dealing with in Kenya. Look at the number of people with asymptomatic symptoms. People asymptomatic. Right? Look at the number of people who require intensive care. Look at the number of people who are presenting themselves with COVID-19 just randomly by checking into a hospital. So all that, the lack of data on one side could also be informing the other side.
It's interesting.
Like I keep saying, if people are not, dropping off on the streets, if people are not dying on the streets, if you're not hearing deaths being reported in villages, and people are saying we don't know what exactly happened to him, and then maybe test is done later, and you find that they had COVID. If you're not seeing all these things, it could also be information that you could use.
That is being used.
Yeah.
Could be used. Let's see how that goes, though. It would be interesting to then see what would be done thereafter. And I know we're going to be having those conversations. But if we look at the situation around the world, things have basically remained the same. Uganda has found a few more cases. 507 is where they are now. Still 0 deaths. And we looked at the fact that yesterday, Rwanda recorded its first 2 deaths. But their numbers still remain quite low and have scaled back in terms of how they wanted to go about and open up the economy and open up the country, and have gone back now and said, look, we still need to deal with some of these cases that we are seeing coming into the country. So things seem to be at a place, especially where, we still seeing an increase in numbers, still high numbers comparatively for Africa in South Africa. But it's to be expected because we know, again, that rigorous testing is happening. They're going to close in on 40,000 very soon because of the fact that they're pumping out hundreds of thousands of tests per day.
And South Africa is also now reopening, right? They still reduce those
Staged
measures.
reopening.
Staged.
Yes.
And the president has basically just come out to say, you know what, now that we are reopening, now we're getting back into daily lives, our normal life, we expect to see an exponential rise in the numbers. This is the reality. The reality is that we shall see a rise in the numbers. It's an obvious thing. It's a given. What they will be monitoring is those cases, how many require to be taken to hospital? How many require hospitalization? How many require intensive care? That is what they'll be focusing on.
Looking at
6:30, we take a look at traffic, and then we start taking a look at the newspaper headlines. Some interesting stories today, very interesting ones, politically across the county in the fight against COVID. The universities and technical colleges admissions, very interesting stories. Good morning. Keep it right here. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. In the room this morning as well is Nduoko.
All right, it's still slow this morning, and we look at different parts. Things seem to be flowing quite smoothly. Even on Mombasa Road, we expect to see pockets of traffic this morning. That's quite open right now. We don't have much of an issue. The Eastern Bypass is open as well. Not much of a problem there. The Southern Bypass, too, off of Mombasa Road, will take you then to Langata Road and then on to Gong Road thereafter, without an issue this morning. We know for a fact that things are going to change. We'll be here to tell you what it looks like, but for now you should be able to get where you're going without much of an issue if you have left early. That is Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. We'll keep you informed as well so that we can keep things moving smoothly this morning.
Okay, so let's take a look at the leading newspaper headlines. Before we come into the politics of the bromance and the boom and the nowhere to hide and the purge in the National Assembly, the other interesting stories. So, this one is given, I think, page 2 and page 3 on The Nation, and it's page 2 on the Standard. KCSE stars shun universities for diploma courses. A total of 78 students who scored B+ and above in last year's KCSE are among 2,632 who have opted to join technical colleges instead of universities. They're among the 88,000 plus who have joined technical and vocational education and training, that's TVET institutions, for the 2020-2021 academic year. One of them is Kahindi Bruno Sharif, who scored an A plane, and he has opted to pursue a diploma in pharmaceutical technology, the highly sought-after course based on the results released on Tuesday by the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services. The other competitive diploma courses include chemical engineering, electrical and electronics engineering, ICT, journalism, music and dance, building and civil engineering, architecture and laboratory technology. Interesting, is it?
I think it's very interesting that you see that somebody, and these courses are available at the university level.
Yep, you have these courses available at the university level with degree programs. Yep, but these students are actually opting to go for the diploma, which is more technical.
There you go.
Yeah, and actually, according to the KUSIPSA, they were saying that. When they were going around and telling students this is what is available at the universities, this is what's available at TVET, some of these students went straight up and opted for the diploma course. And then later they were given a second round. Would you like to confirm? And they confirm that this is what I want to do.
I think it points to
Basically, somebody has made. It's not that they landed in this course by mistake. No.
or by chance,
Or by
something
chance.
else dictated that decision,
Yep.
such as finances or the other thing.
They already knew that they had a high chance of qualifying for university, but they opted to go here.
I think it's very interesting because I think it then points to the fact that there's now more and more there's people are going towards the direction of being very targeted in their training so that the career will allow them to do something for which they have a skill and a talent and they have been trained on it. And we've talked about the fact that unfortunately we have so many things that are needed in this country in terms of, or anywhere, in terms of economic development.
Yep.
But we still end up bringing in foreign expertise because of the fact that locals are not able to do it because they don't receive the adequate training. It doesn't mean it's not available, but it has always been that perhaps there has been a mirage that people feel that if you just take the degree, that's the only way you can get the training. But we see that the diploma training is available, the technical training is available, and I think that you're going to see now a lot more people going towards that kind of training to make sure that they have targeted expertise in the future.
Also, I think it comes to explain why we were looking yesterday and wondering why it is that some universities have degree programs that have received zero
Applications.
Yep. And some of them are actually some of these technical courses, like the ones we're looking at Egerton and the other universities. And we're seeing you have 20 positions and zero applications for that degree program. Now we are seeing that similar programs are being offered in the TVET at diploma level, at a more technical training, and this is where the students are going. People who would have qualified to take up that BTech in Egerton are opting to go to a diploma in technology in a TVET. This is a very good sign, and also it shows that the focus on TVET is bearing fruit now. And the Education CS, Professor Magoha, pleaded with parents to encourage their children to apply for TVET courses and help the country produce more skilled human power. Parents in this country should change their mindset about these courses. In fact, those who train in technical subjects like electricity earn more money and employ others, unlike majority of university graduates who spend years after college without jobs. Julius Dwan, the Technical and Vocational Education Principal Secretary, said the ministry is preparing a blueprint to guide training in this sector. He says they are working together with the industry players to come up with a blueprint that can address the market needs and encourage and incorporate the competency-based curriculum education to be launched later this year. It's a good thing, and I hope that the TVET now is actually even more responsive and in touch with the industry to see this is exactly what the industry needs. So let's produce students or graduates who are trained to meet these specific needs. It's a very, very positive story there.
I think so.
What do you have that's interesting?
Well, yesterday, the President of the Republic of Kenya issued an executive order, the Executive Order 2020. So now let's look at what exactly this means. And it's the front page of the Daily Nation. Uhuru order stirs up storm over Ruto rule. What's in a name? Executive order issued to regularize changes in government, interpreted by some to mean the Deputy President's office has been downgraded and tucked under the Executive Office of the President, earlier known as the Presidency. I would put this under surprise. This is not something that was expected or that was expected to come about at this time. But it did. The NMS has now been placed under the Executive Office of the President by making subtle changes within the structure of government, including the name of his office, the Presidency, to the Executive Office of the President. President Uhuru Kenyatta has left many confused on the hidden political agenda. Executive Order number 1 of 2020, issued last evening, caused a stir with some commentators interpreting the changes to mean the Deputy President's office had been downgraded and tucked under the Executive Office of the President, which is what it is. So whether they commented or not, that's exactly what it means. Some constitutional lawyers said nothing has changed, explaining the order as a mere regularization of changes in government. In the reorganization, the National Development, Implementation and Communication Committee, headed by Dr. Fred Matiang'i, is not listed as one of the functions of the Interior Ministry. Instead, a new role designated as Oversight and Coordination is in delivery of national priorities and flagship programs has been created. So there's certain things that have happened now under this executive order. And I think one of the spotlights, or where the light is being most brightly shown, is on the fact that now the office of the deputy president is under that of the presidency. And
This debate, I think,
it's now an executive office. And what does executive mean?
This debate, I'm looking at it from both sides, and the side that is saying, look, it now means that we do not have the presidency. There's nothing called the presidency. The presidency was just a name, the title. Basically, it's the office of the president according to the Constitution, right? And under the president, the national executive comprises of the president, the deputy president, and the rest of the cabinet members. Okay, now, when they came in, with these bromans, they created something called the presidency, which it's just the optics, I think. The optics and the implication of that was trying to show that we are together. It's a partnership. It's the presidency. It's not president and deputy. It is the presidency where both of us are. But it was clear there's an office of the president and there's an office of the deputy president. It was very clear.
At that time.
And during all this time, the accounting officer, according to both sides of the argument, the accounting officer for both offices is the comptroller of State House. So they have the same accounting officer. Those who are saying that now the deputy president does not have powers to hire and fire, the deputy president was not hiring and firing. It's the Public Service Commission that hires and fires. The chief of staff, who is under the office of the president, is the chief of staff. The head of public service, who is under the office of the president, is the head of public service. So is there really a difference?
I think what this has done is that it has cleared up any vagaries that were in the minds of people. Because if you want to take it away from now structure in terms of an office, and then the political speak that has been lingering around for the longest time is that, so what was the role of the deputy president? To deputize the president? Or could he go ahead and do whatever he wanted? So was it the presidency now where we were together in this? It was a communal thing? Or are we now saying, look, it is very clear that in this structure, the role of the deputy president is a second in command to the president. So all of this comes under the executive office of the president. Within that office, you have the president, then the deputy president, and it goes that way. So for all avoidance of doubt,
and what did we have before?
This is his role.
What did we have before?
You just said
we
it.
had
You
the
just
presidency.
You just said it.
So
It was the
remove the name,
presidency, so it was communal.
Remove the name executive office of the president, call it the presidency. And now the office is there. His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, President and Commander-in-Chief,
but that's
is
not the
still
way
there.
it is.
In State House, His Excellency, that's where he's based. And then you have His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, EGH, blah, 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 Harambee House Annex. It's the same thing,
Right.
even if this first column was showing
the way you explained
presidency.
it, just when you started all of this, when you talked about the presidency, it was understood that it was a communal thing. We're sharing in this idea.
The impression being given.
The impression being given, and even with this, because you could look at the same thing. If you said that nothing has changed, the impression being given is what has changed here. The impression being given before was that we sat on a table, one to the other, and we agreed on how things were going to happen or in how things were going to be rolled out. But clearly, if it's an impression, perception is everybody's prerogative. Right.
And
how
people
things
are changing their perception now by just reading too much into it.
Well, if you looked at the presidency as something communal, now you look at this in terms of how it has changed, then as top down, and we say this is the individual who is going to be calling the shots, because clearly this communal thing that we had before did not work.
I think we are over-reading into it.
There's a reason why it was done. Because there is a reason why it was done. If it was not done, and at this point why it was done, there's clearly a message beyond structure that's being sent here. And if it didn't matter, it wouldn't have been done. So
it's just that it's important to have an executive order in every year. It's important to clearly state the structure of government, especially now when you're talking about the functions, right? The functions of this office: overall policy direction and leadership, promotion of national to chair the cabinet, civilian of oversight, custodian of national security. All these things are still the same things that used to happen before. And if you look at the order of listing of the officers and the offices, you start with His Excellency the President, based in State House, and then you go to His Excellency the Deputy President, based at Harambee House Annex, and then you go to Joseph Kenywa, who's the head of public service, Kennedy Mbogwa, who's the controller of this executive office of the president, who's still basically, what we're saying is he's the one who controls the purse strings. Kennedy Mbogwa, Nzioka Waita is the chief of staff in executive office of the president, and then Ambassador Nyaucho Osinde is the chief of staff in the office of the deputy president. And then you have now bringing in the Nairobi Metropolitan into the office of the president. One of the reasons why maybe the news was coming, so that we are not saying that it's under the executive office of the president that the Nairobi Metropolitan Services lies. To clear the air in terms of even where they get their vote from in budget, to clear the air on how their operations are in budget. They are not under Eugene Omalo's Ministry of Devolution. They are actually under this. So basically what we're saying is President Uhuru Kenyatta is the one in charge of Nairobi.
And the country. And
everybody
else under him.
And Nairobi County, the Nairobi Metropolitan Region, is directly under President Uhuru Kenyatta. I know the optics of everything else, and
for sure
we'll see this debate going.
It's going to go on, but I think it's clearing the air in terms of how the country will be governed moving forward. And I think that if that doesn't come clearly into the minds of many, then it's either you're choosing to ignore it or choosing to look at that reality. It's going to change the way in things which are being. So for avoidance of doubt, if you had any doubt about who's calling the shots, it has been made very clear by this order. The president is calling the shots. And you look at and to clear up any debate, there's been debate for the last 2 months, just as you brought about the NMS, for example, how that has been running. Who then decides who's going to make a decision? Can I then recall? Can I then rescind my decision to append my signature to a certain thing? No, you can't, because now all this debate, throw it out the window. The executive office of the president is the one who's going to be calling the shots. Moving forward, this is how the country is going to be governed. And I think that from this is very, very clear. Head honcho was calling the shots, man. Okay.
On the other side of the politics, and this is given page 4 and 5 by the Standard, it's comparing two scenarios that are playing out 57 years apart. The Madaraka Day display of amity between the president and his deputy was of a playful brand. Remember when we were looking at them, they were, passing notes across each other, and laughing. And then from there, they walked together and they waved to their wives who were at the balcony. In 1963, the then VP, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, had hosted his boss, Jomo Kenyatta, for a hearty Madaraka Day jig. The bonhomie for both pairs was, however, short-lived. In Ruto's case, his allies in parliament were biting the dust 24 hours later. The stage now seems set for intense political happenings, and history is repeating itself. So it's just taking us back into what happened in those days when they had this particular jig with the president and his deputy this year, and the president and his deputy 57 years ago. Let me look at what happened. So, we know what's currently happening is that the DP's allies have been kicked out of leadership positions in the National Assembly and in the Senate, and it's the same kind of stuff that was happening also in Odinga's time. The Minister for Home Affairs, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, had hosted the new African notables to a fete at his residence in Nairobi. The chief guest at the function was the Prime Minister, Jomo Kenyatta, who was slowly but surely plotting the consolidation of power. Odinga was a prime target for the chopping board in the crosshairs of the power telescope of the early 60s. For the time being, however, things looked up with the Prime Minister, his host and cabinet ministers Tom Mboya, Mwai Kibaki, Njoroge Mungai, Bruce Mackenzie, among others, doing a hearty jig. This year's jig, however, was only between the president and his deputy. This is what was happening this time. So, they had that jig, but then we saw Jaramogi getting the chop, and now we had that jig. And soon after that, we are seeing yesterday, this is what happened. The chairpersons and vice chairpersons of various parliamentary committees received letters telling them, sorry, we do not want you to get that allowance anymore. Kimani Shongwa, Chair of the Budget Committee, Alice Wahome, the Constitutional Affairs Committee Vice Chairperson, Moses Kuria, who was the Vice Chairperson of the Transport Committee, Gladys Bosch-Chalet, the Chairperson of the Delegated Legislation Committee, Constitutional Affairs Committee, William Cheptumo, Kate Warogoro, Member of the Services Vice Chair, National Security Vice Chairperson, John Waluke, Victor Munyaka, Sports Committee Chairman, Khatib Mwashetani, Lands Committee Vice Chairman, Robert Pukose, Energy Committee Vice Chairman, Ekomoa, Cohesion Vice Chairman, Elizabeth Chelule, Broadcasting Vice Chairman, Cornelius Serem, Trade Committee Vice Chairman, Agriculture Chairman, Aden Haji Ali, Joyce Korir, who was the Vice Chair of the Labour Committee, Fred Kapondi, who was the Constitution Oversight Vice Chair. All of them, they've been told, do this. You are now ordinary members of Parliament, ordinary committee members. This means that, an allowance for chair and vice chair is a bit higher for chairing the committees. So you are losing that. You're also losing the privilege to get extra security. So basically, there's a lot that's being stripped. Yeah, a lot of the meat that they had is now just being taken away. And this is just a pure show of power by the president.
For sure.
This is a one...
It is a show of power, and I think it's also a huge sending of a message here that, previously whereby you may have thought that because our friendship or our, camaraderie would have meant that you could essentially do whatever you wanted. I'm not going to allow that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's, all guns blazing, no smiling faces. I've been saying things subtly, but now I'm going to use the machinery that I have at my disposal to show you that it's not a joke. So
I was serious then.
I'm serious now.
Yeah.
And since you were not listening to the words that I was using, now let my actions speak louder than my words. And that has shown.
Eden Duale apparently is also not out of the woods yet.
No, he isn't.
So he came out of State House still being the chair of, the leader of the majority in the National Assembly. But according to a statement that he himself authored and released yesterday, he is still feeling the heat. Because apparently he says that the Kenny MP Kanini Kega has been going around to other members and he's collecting signatures to oust him from this position. And Eden Dolly came up with this. So you know what, being a leader of the majority requires dedication. It's not an easy job. And then this man does not even understand the procedure of removing a leader of majority. The standing orders are very clear on how you do that.
Go ahead and do it.
Collection of signatures does not play a part anywhere.
And I think it's interesting that he went on further to say, we've been working, we've been getting things done, we've been legislating as is what our role is supposed to be.
Yep.
So allow us to continue our work, and this is what Kenyans should actually focus on. However, you had already taken Kenyans off focus by addressing this issue in the first place. So
okay.
It continues.
There's an interesting story on COVID-19. This one is coming from Migori County. Health officers are looking for a member of the county assembly who has gone into hiding after coming into contact with a person who tested positive for COVID-19. You want me to repeat that? Health officers in Migori County are looking for an MCA who's gone into hiding after coming into contact with somebody who has tested positive for COVID-19. The health chief officer, Dr. Isaac Koloch, says the MCA switched off her phone after discovering that she was being traced. She's said to have come into contact with the person who tested positive for the disease on Saturday. The patient had escaped from Makalda Isolation Center. It's sad that we have a leader who, instead of leading the fight against COVID, is putting others at risk. We're still tracking her. So she's like, who Ndu?
I was with her.
Oh, good Lord, they're coming for me. Switch off
off the phone, away.
Missing.
So what do you expect other people to do?
What does that tell you, though?
Yeah.
The fear is real.
The fear of COVID is real.
It's real. And the whole issue of stigma about what happens if you have with contact tracing and everything is also real. Because what is expected to happen is, we have traced you, we have found you that you're the person, you're one of the people who had come into contact with somebody who's tested positive. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take you, we're going to put you in quarantine, and you'll stay there for 14 days, and then we'll test you. And because we don't have enough testing kits, we will test you. The results, we'll wait for the results. Until the results come, you'll stay there.
You'll stay in quarantine.
I think this is basically just telling the story again, the story we've been talking about on a daily basis. People have the fear of isolation centers. People have the fear of quarantine facilities and what's happening in these quarantine centers.
Yeah, people have fear of being taken away from their families, as it were, not being able to expend your duty in a normal situation, whatever that may be. And then that's what I'm saying. Look, if you say those who are supposed to be leading by example essentially are not, how are you going to stop members of the public, everybody else, from doing the same thing? We had Dr. Moth told us about how they're trying to trace some people who've given wrong names, given wrong identification, given wrong numbers. This is happening.
Hundreds. So test results are indicating positive.
Yes.
And then they're like, okay, so let's call this person and tell them that we have found that they're positive. Number does not exist, or number is, it's a fake number.
Yeah. This is an issue.
Many in the hundreds. And the reason is the same. Is if I test positive, then what? My life stops for 14 days and I don't know exactly for how long it's going to be like this. We are seeing videos coming out of places. Now we have seen a video coming out of Technical University of Mombasa where people are complaining, we have been kept here. We are okay. We're not getting any information. We want to be released. You saw that video of the people in Mombasa.
We want to be released.
And they're complaining. They say they want to be released. They're wondering, so why are we here?
We're not sick.
We are not sick. We're not getting treatment. We're not getting any information. The doctor comes and tells us, well, you just wait. Tests are conducted. We are told you will receive your results within 24 hours. It's now 3 days later. We have not received our results. We don't know exactly what's happening. That lack of clarity of information is costing us this fight against COVID.
It's true.
And it's something that needs to be addressed. Basically, I think just start from the basics. Just inform people. Come and tell them, all right, guys, so we have taken your samples. There's a backlog at the testing facility. Just stay on and we will sort you out. Tell people that. Don't tell them atujui results zako hazipatikani, tutaona kama tutakutest tena. That
no.
that confusion.
It just already sounds it was a mess, and then now it's being verbalized, and now it's just a little bit crazy in terms of how things are going to be. And I often feel that those with these duties must actually feel like a hamster on a wheel, because you just keep going round and round and round and round the same thing. And we've not actually reached a place where we can say, and because we've not caught up with it, we said months ago that we're trying to catch up with this COVID, or we're trying to say that we have sorted things out. We haven't caught up with it. We don't even know for the most part what exactly is going on. And if you want to look at stories coming out of the US, COVID has been put aside completely. And if you can jump that up onto a new story, President Trump is facing some serious backlash as protesters defy curfews. Now, we know that state of curfew has been instilled in at least 31 of the 50 plus states in the United States. But guess what? They said, we are not going anywhere. And it's interesting because for the first time in a very long time, you have state machinery actually on the side of the protesters. They're out in the streets, but they are not causing harm, as it were. They're actually marching with the protesters. And I thought that was very interesting.
It's interesting, yes.
The US president has been criticized over violent crackdown on demonstrators as standoffs between police and protesters stretch into the night. They defied curfews across the United States as leaders scrambled to stem anger over police racism, while President Trump rejected criticism over his use of force to break up a peaceful rally. Standoffs between police and demonstrators stretched into the night in cities from New York to Los Angeles over the death of George Floyd, an unarmed African American whose killing was brought once in a generation protest to the nation for the past week. This has not happened like this in 100 years, the way it's happening in the United States. And we saw videos coming out whereby protesters were actually speaking to army generals and saying, you know what, we don't want to fight. The uprisings of looting around, this is not actually what we're trying to do. And we would like to keep the attention off the looting and keep attention to the protest of what is actually going on here. And you find that the army is listening to the protesters. You'd never heard of such a thing before. You had blatantly a police chief in New York basically say to the president, sorry, but we're not listening to you in this case. Whatever you've asked us to do, we are not going to do it in this case because it is not right. And then we see that the charge that was leveled against these 4 officers who murdered this man have been increased to second-degree murder.
Yeah,
from
interesting
third degree.
stories. It's now 7 o'clock. Let's remind you today's proverb. The beautiful words don't put porridge in the pot. Beautiful words don't put porridge in the pot. This is from Botswana. Let's take a look at traffic and the conversation continues.
Okay, so let's see what's going on the streets today. Mombasa Road, it's interesting today. It's not really packed as we would expect it to be. It is all right. Getting off of then Thika Road and into the CBD looks fine as well. Traffic is not going to be causing too much of a headache today from what we see so far. We know that could change, getting roundabout to the 7 o'clock hour. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. But for now, you shouldn't have many problems. But we expect things to flare up on Thika Road. We expect it to do the same on Mombasa Road. But getting into the CBD from around many parts of the city should be fine. We'll take a look into what's going on in Kisumu and Mombasa in a short bit as well. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us on Spice FM KE and we can point you in the right direction, or at least keep you company while we all wait.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
spicefm.co.ke, and also you can catch us on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We are live streaming on those platforms. There are some 7 Kenyans who have sued the country. They have sued the government of the state, Republic of Kenya.
What did they do?
They are Kenyans, okay? And they are suing the state of Kenya because the government of Kenya has denied them entry back into the country from Somalia, where they have been. These 7 Kenyans are working on contract in Kisumu town in Somalia, right? Is it Kisumu or Kismayu?
I think it's Kismayu.
Should be Kismayu, man.
Yes.
All right. They claim that they have been in the no man's land at Raskamboni since the 5th of May. They claim that Kenyan authorities have refused to allow them back home or evacuate them to safety. The 7 want the High Court in Mombasa to order the Inspector General of Police and the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government to allow them into the country. Yesterday, the 7, through the Muslim for Human Rights, filed a petition before Justice Eric Ogola seeking to be allowed back into Kenya. Yep. They're saying, where we've been here since the 5th of May, at no man's land, at the border point, and they're not being allowed in. There must be a reason. Why is it? Is it testing positive for COVID-19? What is it?
And nobody's saying what the reason is, why they're still here?
Even they are not saying what the reason is. Well, through their lawyer, Lumatete Muchai, they said that the government, upon declaring COVID-19 a national pandemic, banned travel in and out of Kenya, but sent Kenya Airways to India, UK, US, China, among others, to evacuate Kenyan citizens.
But here we are, just
Us guys
here
are
at the
just
border.
across the border, and now you're saying the border is closed.
Yeah. Something is amiss here. Somebody needs to say the reason why.
But
I
this
do
is the
think that
this is the 5th of May. This is a month later. When did the president declare the border of Tanzania
and Somalia closed? It was in
closed?
the second round of the extension of the cessation of movement within county.
Way past the 5th of May.
Exactly. It was way past the 5th of May.
So
something was brewing before that.
There must be something
Yes,
else.
something else.
It is not because of the closure of borders, because Kenyans who are in Uganda have crossed back, have been able to cross. We have not heard Kenyans saying that they've been unable to come back.
They both know what's going on.
Or those ones in Tanzania have, before the border was closed, they haven't said that they were denied re-entry.
They know.
Mm-hmm.
They
So
know
there
what's
must
going
be
on. They'll tell us.
there must be another case, something else that's happening. But also, it's important that if the government actually goes to court and responds to this and says, "This is what is happening to us." Yeah.
Okay, so FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, is warning on a new locust threat, and it could, new locust could threaten food security. An estimated 20 million people in East Africa are facing acute food insecurity. New swarms from current breeding will form from mid-June when harvesting starts. The Food and Agriculture Organization has warned that the desert locust invasion in the country remains extremely alarming, with an imminent threat to food security. The forecast in East Africa warns of the probability of the pests destroying harvests, leading to acute hunger. Of major concern is that new swarms from current breeding will form from mid-June, coinciding with the start of the harvest. The forecast says that therefore there is a risk that swarms will migrate to the summer breeding areas along both sides of the Indo-Pakistan border, as well as to Sudan and perhaps West Africa. Ground and aerial control operations continue against the hopper bands in the northwest of Turkana and Marsabit. A few late maturing swarms are seen south of Lodwar, and new infestations are found along the Tana River, where hopper bands are present. The organization notes that the invasion poses an unprecedented risk to agriculture-based livelihoods and food security in an already fragile region. So an estimated 20 million people are already facing severe acute insecurity in Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, South Sudan, Uganda, and Tanzania. So this is a problem here because, the current breeding is going on. Harvests are coming in the just before the winter months in Kenya.
So no end in sight to this issue.
They keep coming.
I was about to call it pandemic. Locusts.
You wouldn't be so far from that, I think.
Disaster.
So it says that normally desert locusts mature and lay eggs from 2 to 4 months. This means that the first generation that bred in the counties of Samburu, Isiolo, Wajir, Mandera, and Marsabit have begun breeding. The ones who were babies 3 months ago have not left, because now we have the floods that have come in. And what that does is that then increases the amount of fresh vegetation, which is softer for them to now gobble up, right? So there was no need for them to move. They bred, guess what? They've grown, and now they are breeding. That's what's going on.
Good Lord. Oh, good Lord.
This is not a good place to be in.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Not at all. Not at all. Then we know what we were discussing yesterday, what the Nairobi Metropolitan Services is doing. This is coming up with the walkways and cycling paths, right? But there is a shame of grabbed walkways in Nairobi that's being highlighted this morning by the Standard. Small businesses have taken over the vital spaces right inside the capital city centre and on other roads. The general indiscipline and inadequate enforcement of law is clawing back on the gains made to secure the utility of new walkways and cycling paths of an emerging new city. Unhindered, small businesses have taken over the walkways and cycling lanes along Ngong Road, Outer Ring Road, Jogoo Road, a trend that's replicated along feeder roads on major city estates. And the culprits themselves have no shame admitting that they are breaking the law as authorities look the other way or are overwhelmed. They are talking to one trader here who says, "My profits have doubled since I set up my shop on the pavement. I am able to attract customers who make impulse purchases as they come to work and go home from work." This is according to Paul Irongo, who sells fruits and vegetables on the walkway of a major city road.
So you want to ask yourself who to blame here?
Yeah, I'm saying we're calling it general indiscipline and inadequate enforcement of the law. But at the same time, because this is a conversation about hawkers has been there for years.
Yeah.
Should we be blaming these traders, or should we also be looking at the city authorities are looking the other way because they've been unable to provide an environment for such businesses
Well,
to thrive.
there you go, because you know that businesses like that exist. In terms of the planning of the city, then there should have been a designated area where such individuals would then be able to go and set up shop, right? Because you know they exist. But then in the absence of that, they're going to come into the street. So it's kind of like it's a two-sided problem here, because hawkers, you would assume that they would know you can't come into the street and set up shop.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're saying, well, okay, well, then where else are we
Where do you want
supposed
us to go?
You see?
Where do you want us to go? Go to the markets. Which markets? The Westlands market has taken many years to
not
complete.
done yet, yeah.
Right? Over 5 years of construction of market in Westlands. And this is one of those that was being touted as, it's going to help sort out some of these issues. We're going to have small traders coming here. What other markets have been put up in other parts of the city? So if you're talking about Ngong Road, Jogoo Road, and these other places, when people are going to work, assuming that they're coming to work in the city center or the CBD and its environs, and then going back home into the estates on those roads, then the city authorities should have come up with better markets. There was even a time there was a conversation about closing off some streets and promoting street markets on the weekends. If you come up with a plan, let's say, I think the whole idea was to have, what street is this? Koinange Street. I think on Saturdays or Sunday.
To be a street market.
So they just make it a street market, let's say on Sunday.
Yeah.
Every day or every Sunday, open it up. Shops are closed, but then now the entire road, both sides of Koinange Street, becomes a market. So people can put up their wares and you have proper arrangement. You require now the city authorities to be there to ensure that that's happening, to also have cleaning that happens before and after. All that organization that needed to happen. That story fizzled out. There was a lot of pushback from the people who have businesses along that street.
Yeah.
They're raising concerns about security and all. But if you walk around that street on Sunday, those businesses are closed.
I think this all comes to, as you say, I think about it even further now. And I say, all these things can actually be sorted out with proper planning. Because if you think about it, just like you said, the complaints that one set of businesses would have on a particular day in the week then would not exist by virtue of the fact that it was done on a particular day.
Yep.
And what these individuals are looking for is space and where people can walk through. And normally on a weekday, they're only able to do it where there's high traffic very early in the morning or very late in the evening.
Yep.
So you can imagine one day whereby you could now have people coming through because they then have the time. So, the nitty-gritty of it is really maybe not as important as saying that the planning is what needs to be done. And somebody, I think, plans it until a certain point and then it dies and then it springs up now when you have a problem like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People find ways, just like when Jiro keeps telling us on Jiro Kikonyo, we live despite the government. So, there's government, but we have to find ways of living and surviving.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. The same story is actually also raising questions on where government institutions block and cordon off streets and pathways. Case in point, Times Tower.
Yeah.
You get to Times Tower, you have to find a way. You cannot cross. And what's their excuse? It's security matter. Well, you can understand some things on security, the terrorism attacks and all. And these are high security installation. Okay, so, but what happens? Come up with an alternative. If you're blocking off and saying you cannot walk across or just outside, you drive through because this is Times Tower here and houses KRA, so
then where can you go?
Where can you go?
Yeah. I think that's also the problem that, we oftentimes, management of certain areas comes up with something in terms of this is what's going to be without taking into consideration what was there before and then what you need to do to give a solution for those now who are left without one by this new thing that you've come up with. And I think, unfortunately, the thinking doesn't go end to end most times. And we're going to continue seeing things like this. Since I came to Kenya, this hawker thing has been an issue. I have heard it year on, year out.
Every year
hawkers. It's a problem.
Remove hawkers from the streets. Hawkers are back. Hawkers have invaded the streets. They're striking. They're striking.
Demonstrating because,
they're indisciplined. They are, ungovernable, unmanageable. Is the problem the hawker, really? Is there a better way of dealing with this? In fact, I even remember before President Moi Kibaki left office, he had started a huge project of saying we're going to deal with the hawkers by coming up with markets. Mudhurwa was going to have a multi-story market.
That has not started.
Muthurwa was going to have a multi-story market, and they came up with the market, but look at the organization of that. Is it addressing all the needs? Has it met the needs?
It's non-existent.
It's non-existent. So you still need to come up with more.
Yeah.
Westlands Market was supposed to be another one. You need to look at Kariakor Market. How can you make Kariakor Market accommodate more traders? Because Kariakor Market is there. It has been operational for many years, but in this day and age, Kariakor Market is still serving a 70s population.
Wow.
Not a 2020 population, for all intents and purposes. Other estates in the city are still not able to address the kind of growing demand for traders to be able to display their wares.
Yeah.
It's 7:15. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, you can watch the Situation Room on www.spicefm.co.ke. You can also watch us on YouTube. Our channel is Spice FM KE. You can just go and search the Situation Room. November. Why did I come up with November?
I don't know. What are you
4th
thinking?
of June.
Something is happening on November 4th.
I don't know. Probably. Okay. And then also we are on Spice FM KE Facebook and Spice FM KE Twitter. Let's take a look at the weather. The conversation continues.
All right. In Nairobi now, we see it's a little bit warmer, but it remains mostly cloudy conditions at 14 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 12. In Nyeri this morning, it is still mostly cloudy at 14. We'll see highs of 23 with showers then in the afternoon. Nakuru takes us to 24, the high today, with showers later, high and lows of 13. Eldoret this morning is cloudy conditions, highs of 22 and lows of 12, with forecasted thunderstorms in later part of the day. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu this morning. It'll be rainy later. Highs of 27, currently standing at 21. Kakamega, cloudy conditions takes us to rainy conditions later. Highs of 24 and lows of 16. Mombasa at 24 degrees is partly cloudy. Highs of 30 and lows of 24. Looking then into Malindi, where it's mostly cloudy this morning and the rains have actually started coming down at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 29. Kampala at 19 degrees is cloudy all through, and thunderstorms will come in early. Highs of 25 and lows of 19. We'll take a look then into Dar es Salaam, where it's mostly sunny at 22 degrees. This will be the trend for most of the day, with highs of 32 and lows of 21. In Johannesburg this morning, it's clear skies at 8 degrees. Sunny conditions all through, highs of 21, and then going down to a chilly low of 5. And finally, for now, in Lagos, it's clear skies at 26 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 25.
Spice up your life.
To one of the CEOs in a private hospital. This is the Nairobi hospital. To
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
We have seen a reduction in numbers who are seeing
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Said, all right, we have also noticed the same, but we want to encourage people to start going back to hospital. But we have come up with measures to ensure that we protect all patients from COVID-19. All right, those who are coming to hospital for treatment for COVID-19, those who are coming to hospital seeking treatment for other diseases, we need to make sure that we have a seamless flow of this. And there are, regulations that the government came up with, and we shall be looking into those and seeing what is happening now in hospitals. In the meantime, interesting stuff happening.
Yes, true. Lake Turkana has always been at the forefront of global attention, and it seems that now stakeholders are counting on a global event to launch talks on saving Lake Turkana. The building of a dam on River Omo has reduced the lake water's level. Environmentalists and other stakeholders are planning to use the celebration of World Environment Day to be held in Turkana County on Friday, which is tomorrow, to initiate talks on saving Lake Turkana. The lake, which UNESCO included on the list of endangered world sites in June 2018, is on the verge of drying up following the construction of the Gibe 3 dam on the River Omo in Ethiopia, from which the lake gets 80% of its water. So the National Environment Management Authority Acting Director, Mamo Boru Mamo, said hosting the event in Turkana presents an opportunity for the country and other stakeholders to show the world the unique topography and diverse biodiversity in the county and create awareness on the challenges of conserving them. So World Environment Day is tomorrow. Turkana has been the center of, it's been said that, the wildlife that basically visit this lake are in danger. The fish in this lake are also at danger because of the fact that the water levels are receding. And so now looking at an opportunity to save this and saying that this is a potential to actually feed the rest of the country, and if it's dwindling in terms of its resource, then it needs to be given some attention. The impact of the lake, it receives most of its water from the River Omo in Ethiopia, and has seen the level recede drastically. The number of fish species in the lake has been declining. The lake is a source of livelihood for more than 20,000 people and has the potential to generate up to 3 billion shillings a year from fishing, and yet another dam is planned on River Omo, which is the source of the lake.
The conversation around this, when the Gibe Dam was still an idea, there are very many organizations and the people around Lake Turkana who started raising these concerns, all right, and even coming and petitioning the government to have conversations with the Ethiopian government on how they are going to ensure that Lake Turkana does not get affected severely by the construction of the Gibe Dam near on River Omo. Conversations happened, and then there was, that at national level. Sometimes, we don't know of the conversations that take place in this country, and the kind of agreements and deals that are made on such needs
in private.
Because when these activists and residents were raising these issues, conversations actually took place, and I remember there was a report by the government saying that, yes, they've talked with the government of Ethiopia. The greater good is going to be observed, and the greater good includes that Kenya will also have access to power that's being generated from this dam. The issue of the livelihoods of the people around Lake Turkana was discussed, but not to that great length. And now that this conversation is still happening, when we're now talking about building a second dam,
where you've not even dealt with the problems
and
that the first one created.
Yes, or even highlighting the issue on the impact of, since the construction of Gibe Dam, what has happened to the waters and the livelihood around Lake Turkana. Why do I keep saying Victoria?
Because
Lake Turkana,
yes.
right? What is it that has happened? So is it how much? At what percent has the lake receded in terms of waters? What kind of impact has it had on livelihoods? I'm sure this information is out there with these people. They can tell you, they know, but the conversation somewhere gets lost in between. When you see the county government coming up, and for 7 years, the county government of Turkana has not been able to stop that, or has not been able to even have better negotiations on what happens to the lake, it tells you there's a lot that we don't know, a lot that happens that we don't know.
A lot that happens.
We can understand.
But you can imagine what it could do. I mean, I think just trying to imagine what it could do for the environment, number one, what it could do for the local communities around the lake, what it could do for fish species. Then when we talk about hunger and food security, oftentimes we think maize, right? In the country. But just looking at this as a food source that could essentially feed the entire country. a lot of times we forget about Lake Turkana and what it has the ability to do for Kenya. And I think this is what people, the Friends of Lake Turkana, as they call themselves, are trying to get people to understand and say, you know what, this is not just about us and the surrounding communities, but it's a potential of what this could do for the entire country that we are trying to save. So when those talks are being had, like you say, Eric, that you're having those talks in private, you need to take into consideration what really the situation is on the ground. Because in terms of what it could do for the country, here is another example of, great things that could happen if, this resource was preserved.
Indeed. Can I bring you back to Nairobi on real estate?
Yes.
Nairobi County has registered the highest number of rent defaults. This is as hundreds of thousands of families fail to pay their rent for the second month in a row, raising concern of further losses for the city's ailing real estate market. According to data by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, an overwhelming majority of the housing units currently recording rent defaults are in Nairobi, with tenants, landlords and financial providers forced to renegotiate payment details. KNBS data from a household survey released earlier this month is indicating that 30% of households were unable to pay their rent. Now, the majority of that have been unable to pay for March and April. They were unable to pay in time. The new data for May is also going to come up, and of course it's going to show that this is an increasing problem. So one of the things that we said is going to be a direct hit on COVID is the inability to pay rent.
From
inability
COVID,
to provide safe shelter for your family. Because if you've not paid rent, if the landlord comes and says, look, I need you to get out.
But I mean, if you look at what the real estate market was even pre-COVID times, there was also a mini crisis that was already being experienced and realized, whereby you had a lot of developers and owners asking people to come in for free for the first few months, even get the experience and then pay later, because nobody was filling up these spaces,
especially in commercial places.
For many reasons. Affordability and affordability taking up the major percent of that. People were just not able to afford it anymore because of the state of the economy. You were not able to pay these high prices for commercial outlets, right? So now enter COVID, and people were struggling to pay rent. Now with job losses, now with pay cuts, now with forced leave, people have less money in their pockets to be able to pay. So it's not a matter of not wanting to. And by the time you saw some landlords actually, reducing rent, number one, or saying that people could live rent free for at least a month until they were able to gather themselves, then you know that there was a problem. And it's difficult to say that landlords should have prepared themselves that people would not pay rent, because this is their main source of income in a lot of cases. The rent, the buildings that they've put up, they're waiting for people to come and take them up so that they can live off of that. This has not happened. And I don't think that it is because people have the money and they're putting it in their pockets. It's just because they don't have it.
They're just
they're unable to pay.
They're unable to pay. They would like to, but they just can't. They just cannot. They can't afford to pay. So this is one of those that we are saying the effects of COVID-19 have been, not small. They are big on the economy. The effects of COVID-19, just like the president said, look, we cannot just continue living like this. We have to find a way, strike a balance of all of us agreeing that we need to continue the economic activity, but this is what we are also going to do to address the pandemic. Because the pandemic is here. We cannot assume that the pandemic is gone. 72 people dying from one disease is not a small number. Those are people who did not have to die. But if we can strike a balance between how do we come up with measures to ensure that we're protecting ourselves and our community from the further spread of COVID-19, and how do we continue living our lives, taking part in our economic
Beyond
activities.
COVID-19.
This is where the interesting bit would be. I think this is where we have to find something, that balance. We'll be having this conversation on what should we expect from the president on Saturday. Are we expecting that he's going to tell us now, just live your life? Is he going to open up remove the cessation of movement from the places that have been imposed with cessation of movement? The 4 counties, Nairobi, Kwale, Mombasa, Kilifi. Is he going to remove the curfew and say no more curfew? Is he going to allow churches, bars, schools to reopen immediately?
think about it.
Yeah, and we've got to live with those realities. There's a reality that we cannot ignore, right? And we have to be aware that this is where we are at. Coming up to 7:30, this is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here because soon after this traffic break, we will be talking to the CEO of the Nairobi hospital to ask him about now that there is resumption of elective surgeries and people have been told to go back to hospital. What else has the government said? The government has said, well, you can open up the hospitals for everybody to come in, but ensure that you have clearly designated facilities where you'll be treating COVID-19 patients, and also come up with protocols on how the workers who are treating the patients who have come for other conditions are not interacting with the patients of COVID-19 to just ensure that there is no transmission of COVID-19 within hospitals. So we'll want to find out what hospitals are now doing to address that. Good morning. It's 7:30.
Okay, so Thika Road seems to have quite a number of people working out this morning, and that's what we see. Not much in terms of vehicular traffic. It's normal going from all the way from Safari Park and then into the city centre. Not so much today. Right around Pangani Underpass, you have a little bit of a slowdown of traffic, but nothing major as we see it right now. Mombasa Road right around the Cabanas, what we normally know to be traffic there. But then getting into the CBD, nothing. Yesterday was crazy. Today, not so much. Let's see if that changes later on, though. We'll keep our eyes out for that so that we can make sure that everybody's moving smoothly this morning. Spice of MKE, don't forget, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. In case you see something that jumps out at you, let us know and we'll spread the word. But it shouldn't be too much of a difficult morning when it comes to traffic today.
Biggest conversation in the room this week is Nduoko and Eric Latif. So, the Director General for Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, on the 29th of May issued a circular to all, CEOs, to all county executive committee members for health, talking about the resumption of elective surgical procedures in facilities. Remember, this is what they had done immediately after the first COVID-19 case. They talked about, okay, let's reduce the traffic into hospitals until we understand what we're dealing with. So they talked about elective procedures were now going to be suspended. However, in this letter, he says, the national government and the county health management teams have put in place strategic and elaborate plans for continuous prevention of further spread and management of COVID-19. The measures and interventions taken to contain the pandemic have been hitherto successful and have slowed down the rate of COVID-19 transmission in the community. This letter is therefore to call you to judiciously resume elective surgical procedures at your facilities whilst maintaining the highest standards of infection prevention and control. Further guidance on operationalizing can be found in the interim guidance on continuity of essential health services during the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been published on the government, the health website, the Ministry of Health website, health.go.ke. Now, those guidelines are basically what we were discussing earlier. They are asking hospitals to set up a facility that is separate that is dealing with COVID-19. This one is clearly dealing with COVID-19 patients. It's an isolation and treatment center. And anybody else who has COVID-19 will go into these other clear facilities. The healthcare workers who have pre-existing conditions, ensure as much as possible that they also do not get to work on this side of the COVID-19 patients, just also to reduce their risk of infection. If anybody comes to hospital and they have any of these symptoms for COVID-19, let's say breathing difficulties, respiratory issues, you shall immediately test them for COVID-19. If children come in, children receive fast priority. So all these now are in place. Basically, what the government is saying is, okay, now we know what we are dealing with so far. Initially, when we said, let's reduce as much as possible going to hospitals because we didn't know what we'd be dealing with. Now we have a picture of what we have. So let's encourage Kenyans to start their health care seeking behavior and go to hospital. If you're feeling unwell for whatever reason, go to hospital, go see your doctor. The impact of the past 60 days had been huge on hospitals, public and private, and mission hospitals as well.
Yeah, I think we definitely saw the drop in cases, and there's so many reasons that could be applied to that as to why people stopped going to hospital. I don't think we can run away from that reality, that there was a drop. People did not go to hospital for certain things, for fear that they may not leave when they went for a checkup, because then it would now become a COVID matter, or for fear that nobody wanted to go to hospital and essentially get infected. And then also because of warnings that were given out that the hospitals actually are the war zones for COVID, and that you don't want to go to hospital if you didn't really need to, because they were saving the space essentially for COVID. Right? So those are the reasons why people never went. But there were things we have to remember that were pending, right? Somebody has, and that were not emergency surgeries, things like appendicitis. You don't want to play around with that. You need to get that thing out done. But then there were other things that were elective and said, like, this needed to be done. It bothers me every now and then, but I can wait. So now it would be good to note that people then can now start going back to hospital to get those pending issues sorted out. Because unfortunately, with medical issues that would be pending, soon they could become an emergency. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen in the next, couple of weeks, next couple of months, if this particular thing is not attended to. Now, is there still a fear of COVID going into hospital?
Interesting to find out. Good to find. Let's speak to our friend, Dr. Alan Pamba. Dr. Pamba is the CEO of the Nairobi Hospital. Alan, good morning.
Good morning, Latif. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Alan.
Good to speak to you again, Alan. And, we know that since the last time we spoke, we were talking about how hospitals are basically seeing the impact of COVID-19 as businesses.
That's right. It's quite interesting how, and I think Joe described it very well. We did our best to make our hospital safe, but we also scared everyone out to the hospital. And people did what we asked them to do and stayed away. Even when we were ready for them to come back, they were still fearful. And I think now the government has, given a very blanket welcome back to your hospital statement. And we're beginning to see a trickle back in. It's interesting how COVID has panned in Kenya. We had very big numbers initially that were predicted. I think we've done all the right things. The numbers have stayed manageable. And there's a whole debate around, did we overdo it, or are the numbers manageable because we did the right things? But so far, so good.
Now, the DG for health says people can come back, but then you've got to observe certain measures.
Right.
Just take us through those critical measures that you have been outlined by the government.
I think the main thing, Latif, is to ensure that the public remains safe even as they get their regular care coming back into hospitals. And indeed, we've had quite a bit of time to ensure that. We put up, if I talk about the Nairobi Hospital, we have put up temperature and history screening points as you come into the hospital. So whereas before you come straight into A&E and then somebody will see you, triage you and put you in the right place, you go through this pre-screening that happens on the parking lot of the hospital. We have a tent we've set up there.
Okay.
They take your temperature, they take your history, and if there's anything suggestive, We have another tent next to this one where you can get your COVID testing done. And then, depending on how your results pan out, you will be channeled to one or the other parts of the hospital. So the hospital is essentially divided into two. We have an isolated facility dedicated to COVID, which you will never see unless you have COVID, and I hope you never see it. And then we have the rest of the hospital, which functions essentially normally. And you will not even know where the COVID facility is when you come. You will see people on the corridors following the other
Alan, you're making this sound like it's somewhere in a bunker.
Well,
it's a panic room for COVID in Nairobi Hospital.
No, Latif, it's important that we make sure that we follow infection prevention control measures strictly with this. In other countries, they've separated their hospitals into, you're going to be COVID hospitals and treat nothing else, and you're going to be regular hospitals. We haven't done that in Kenya. We have to do it at facility level. And when you follow your IPC protocols strictly, it means the area where you're managing COVID patients, no one can stray into it by mistake. There are very clear protocols on people's movement, so nobody strays, whether it's a health worker or a member of the public. And that's what we've done at the Nairobi Hospital.
So does this mean that some people who are working in this COVID facility, the healthcare workers who are working in these COVID facilities are working exclusively in this COVID facility?
Correct. So, and when they come in, they will be dressed like all the other health workers until they get into that zone. And when they get into that zone, they have an area where they will don their PPEs and then cross into, what is essentially the COVID area, so the wards where these patients are. And then they'll work a couple of hours. And because it's very hard to be on PPEs the whole time, then they come out of PPEs and they have their resting area within that space. They get their meals within that space and they turn shifts around that space. And then eventually they'll go home like everybody else, and that's their workstation.
So then do you have a crossover of medical staff between the COVID area and the other areas?
The medical staff can cross over in common areas, but remember, when they get into the COVID area, they're fully protected because they're donning their PPEs.
And then when they come out, I don't mean just crossover taking a walk, but actually to work. No, they don't.
No.
So a nurse who's working in the COVID area will not come to the general area?
No.
To work.
And if they have to come to the general area to work, there's a whole testing process that follows before they cross over. Yeah.
Do you think that even without the government directive, Alan, that you would have been able to do both? That you would have been able to continue with business as usual for surgeries and the like in the hospital while still having a fully functional running COVID area?
Oh yeah,
not just you, but not just you as the Nairobi Hospital, but other facilities as well.
We can do, but it depends on your team of medical expertise. So at the Nairobi Hospital, we're lucky we have an excellent team of infectious disease specialists, right across the spectrum from doctors to nurses, etc. These are folks who understand infectious disease and the protocols that are required to manage the same. So they're the ones who come to the fore when you have a condition like this, and they decide and they define the protocols for us as a hospital. As it were, a lot of the things that they came up with mirrored what the government eventually came up with, and hospitals built their protocols over time, or so the government either the one in tandem with the government or a little bit ahead. So we had an excellent team that defined this very early on. And we were ready, I think, for months, for many weeks now, to run these essentially two hospitals in one. But patients coming to COVID did come, and we've managed quite a number of cases, and we continue to do so. General patients coming to the other part of the hospital were slow to come to the point you already made, though. And now they're coming. Now they're getting confident. Now they're beginning to come again.
But this is, Alan, this is only at the Nairobi Hospital, main hospital.
That's right. If you go to a satellite clinics, however, you will also see similar protocols in terms of temperature history screening as you come in. And then a separation happens very, very quickly if you have suggestive symptoms for COVID. And within our satellite clinics, we've built a very strong referral system into our hospital, specifically for COVID.
Yep.
We have a dedicated ambulance with a dedicated team that quickly come and pick up a patient who may need to be brought to the hospital because they have symptoms suggestive of COVID.
Okay.
Does this regulation not put up some strain in terms of operations and challenges? For example, when the government says you should have a dedicated ambulance that deals with COVID.
Latif, you're right. This is it's not cheap, right? It's a huge cost. Not every hospital will be able to do this.
Yeah.
Our ambulance is busy, not just picking patients from our clinics, but also from other hospitals and other centers. So that co-sharing is important to make sure that resources that don't have, or institutions that don't have that level of resourcing, leverage what is essentially a dedicated ambulance that probably has 2 trips for us in a day, or one. Yeah.
So you'll be able now to share this particular COVID ambulance with other facilities.
Correct.
Okay, now let's talk about, looking at, this is just a private hospital that's able to come up with these protocols and roll them out. Let's look at the other smaller private hospitals as well. Do you see them being able to come up with all these measures? Are we talking about the ones? We're talking about the ones that are, talking about the other smaller hospitals that have even had to fire their staff or reduce their staff or even tell their staff to go on unpaid leave because of reduced operations, their capacity, where they operate, their spacing. Are they going to be able to do to meet these protocols?
It's an excellent question, Latif. It's difficult. It's very difficult for small hospitals. It's difficult for all businesses, but that includes hospitals. COVID has changed, our world the way we know it. It started off with other businesses laying off staff, etc. Now you're seeing hospitals being impacted in that way. And some of the small ones got caught up with what happened to protect the public and keep the public safe coming into hospital. All the measures that were pronounced by governments and some hospitals independently like us, advising the public, you can't come into hospital to visit your patients anymore. Our opening hours are now restricted. We've closed down the satellite. All the things that we did that scared people off.
Yeah.
But were required to make the hospital a safe space for the regular patients. Some small hospitals are having to pay a price for that. And it's very unfortunate. The revenue streams that went really down in the months when patients didn't come resulted in what you've seen, which is pay cuts and staff being sent home. Some hospitals can recover from that, others won't be able to recover from that. Specifically to your question, Latif, will the small hospitals be able to do this separation in managing COVID? It depends. You've got to box very smart as a small hospital to do this.
Yeah.
And where you can't, some hospitals just make the decision, look, we can't have a facility to manage COVID. If you've got a case, take it to the Nairobi hospital, and they will build a referral linkage, so that they just focus on regular patients.
Which is where now that other question comes in. Are there conversations like this that are happening? Maybe through the umbrella, the Association of Private Hospitals and such? Because I am seeing a case where patients take themselves to hospital. You go there, but because of at the initial screening, the healthcare worker suspects that there could be a case of COVID, they turn you away and they don't even tell you, this is where we want to send you. We want to refer you to this other facility. They basically tell you, we're going to COVID, don't come in here.
Well, that would be unfortunate, Latif. I hope it's not happening in that manner. There is a certain level of decency that we must display as healthcare providers in giving patients the right set of information. People just want to know the truth, It's a scary thing to be told, we suspect you have COVID, sorry, you can't come here.
Yep.
Make the story complete by saying, look, we suspect you have it, you may or may not. here are 2 or 3 other facilities that are doing this better than us. We're going to call them. They'll come and pick you up. And they've got solid protocols that take care of you. I'm sure these conversations are happening. I have to be honest, I have not been involved in any I guess probably at my level. I've got my doctors probably doing this.
Okay.
But for small hospitals, I'm very sure, they're trying to see how they can build these referral linkages. Because even having an isolation ward where you're managing purely COVID is a big resource. I've got 37 beds dedicated to COVID. Any one time I've got 12 patients on average. I've got the rest of the beds empty. But in the event that there is a surge and we have many more patients, I'm ready for that. Not every hospital has the luxury to do that.
Alan, there was a lot of convoluted messaging that came from the beginning of all of this, just that we've talked about now, and then could also give rise to the decisions that a lot of people made not to come to hospital now. In this instance, whereby it's being rolled out slowly, how then would healthcare facilities, hospitals, be able to unravel this messaging and now put through the messaging that you can come back and it is safe? Because people's decisions were made, whether the messaging that came out was solid or not, it was made on that. How are we going to change that in this time and let people know that they can come back without any doubt?
It's really a very good question, there. I think it's a concern on the top of many doctors who want to see their regular patients and not see them when they have deteriorated too much. And also for us as hospitals who have facilities that are ready to take care of the patients. And we know we've got Mr. So-and-so who's an hypertensive but hasn't been here for 8 weeks. Mr. So-and-so who's a diabetic but hasn't had, his insulin for a long time. And you begin to wonder, are they safe? Are they okay? So we are all concerned and we'd like them to be able to come back. Now, word of mouth is very powerful. So the few patients who come and see the protocols in operation. So you come to the Nairobi hospital, you get your temperature and history screen, you walk the corridors, you see everyone wearing a face mask, people social distancing. You go to the pharmacy, you can see the spacing in the waiting area is different than what you saw before. So you navigate all of that and you come out and you think, actually, I'm probably safe coming to this space. And then you tell your family and friends. And they're going to trust you, probably more than they'll trust me, or trust Dr. Moses' government in any pronouncements we make in the press. So word of mouth is powerful, and I think that will help us. The other one is the doctors, the actual doctors who see the patients. Patients trust the doctors a lot. If your doctor calls you and say, well, now you can come in and I'll do that elective surgery, or I'll see you in my clinic at the Nairobi hospital, the patient will come because they trust their doctor. A lot more than if I said it as the chief executive of the hospital. So that's another way in which I think we will get, and the doctors are coming back. When this happened, not only did patients not come to the hospital, but many consultants closed their clinics because they wanted to be safe as well. Thankfully, they've all now reopened their clinics, and they will be our biggest critics as management of hospitals. They'll walk the corridors and they'll point out if we have any gaps. And the fact that all my consultants are back running their clinics gives me a lot of confidence that our protocols are good and that our patients are safe coming back into our compound.
Dr. Allen, let's now talk about that. We are reopening. So doctors are back. The president is saying we need to start thinking of how best to reopen, and also borrowing from examples of other countries. Do you think reopening would cause us to see a spike in numbers, or even second, put us back into danger?
So what am I observing, Latif? So here's my view on that. When we started dealing with COVID, our government took very drastic measures. If you compare us to Tanzania and to some extent even Uganda, we were quick. We were quick in shutting down air flights into the country, shutting down schools, colleges, and very quickly moving it everyone wearing a mask. The numbers that we predicted was scary.
Yep.
And quite honestly, myself, as a CEO of a hospital, I always get. I mean, I did a couple of interviews early on in the pandemic where I talked a lot about, look, this battle is on two fronts. At the moment, it's on the social front. We need to win it there. If we lose it there, it comes to the hospitals. And, turning the hospital into a COVID battlefield, the way we've seen in New York, Italy, Spain, etc., Kenya wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
We just didn't have the capacity to do those large numbers. So I think some of the things that the government did, the numbers that were predicted and the measures that were implemented, probably flattened the curve. Now, nobody talked about that. It's a difficult thing to prove.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing now is people beginning to think, well, this COVID thing isn't so bad. I need to get back to my daily hustle.
We can live with it.
And hopefully, I can navigate all spaces they used to, navigate without much fear. And so, and the government is sending messages also in that direction that, look, we're going to start reopening the economy. Hopefully, they calibrate the reopening gently, so that it's not a sudden, everything is free for all, schools are open, everything is open. And we keep some of those good behaviors that we've now developed, social distancing, wearing masks, not shaking hands, etc. If we open it in a calibrated manner, I think hospitals have had quite a lot of time to prepare to deal with this. It's not perfect, but we're in a much better place than where we were at the beginning of this.
Okay.
The numbers that have been coming are more manageable, and they probably might be a small spike, but probably manageable.
Okay, so if looking at a spike, Alan, and saying that, all right, we are prepared, as facilities to take in, if we do, because the fear before was that the system was not going to be able to handle it if we had several cases of the critically ill. If those cases do increase, are we comfortable or confident that we would be able to handle more critical cases? And I'm not talking about expertise, Alan. I'm just talking about space at this point. Space and facilities.
Yeah. So many hospitals have, the bigger ones at least, have built space to take care of COVID, and have also had staff to double with COVID. I call it double because our numbers have been manageable, right? So we haven't had a shock into the system where staff are, dealing with overwhelming numbers. And it was interesting that at the beginning, even staff were scared. The confidence to walk into an isolation ward was weak. Now I see my staff very confident. They come, they don the PPEs, they get in there, they get out, very confidently. And that's what I'm talking about, that it makes me feel if we had a spike, I wouldn't have people standing at the corner thinking, I'm not going into that room, I'm not dealing with a patient. We've got people who have done it already, and they're a little bit more confident, and they've had a lot of success, and many of those patients have recovered. Now, if we do have a big spike, we will be overwhelmed. That I will tell you for a fact, because the number of ventilators we have in the country has not massively increased. For example, the COVID essential items supply chain has not completely corrected. We're still buying PPEs at crazy prices. It's beginning to correct, but we've not secured those supply chains yet. And that's why I caveated the reopening of the economy to something that needs to be done cautiously so that the numbers are manageable as they trickle into the hospital.
All right. I guess still looking at how things will continue to unfold as we see how things progress. Dr. Alan Pamba, CEO of the Nairobi Hospital, thanks for talking to us this morning. We appreciate you being in the room with us as we continue to watch how things go.
Thank you very much, guys. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
good day, Alan.
And you. Bye for now.
All right. Coming up to the top of the hour, in the next hour, we'll be switching gears a little bit and talking about presidential awards, the national award scheme, how those awards are awarded.
Yes.
But also we need to be celebrating our guest host for the season, Dr. Korir, who received presidential recognition for the work that she's been doing in promoting awareness on COVID-19. Okay, today's proverb is from Botswana. It says, "Beautiful words don't put porridge in the pot." Beautiful words do not put porridge in the pot. Words without action are useless and they do not help anyone. Kizungu mingi na catwalk. If you just have to Kenyanize this one. Too much, peri peri. In fact, peri, too much. Words, beautiful words, will not put porridge in the pot. Good morning. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 8 o'clock.
Yep, we expected it. Thika Road this morning is quite the mess. It's moving very slowly down towards the Utali Drift and then towards the Pangani Underpass, joining traffic from Muthaiga Corner, joining from Kiambu Road. Everybody's trying to go to the CBD this morning. It's taking a little longer than expected, but you're going to have to exercise patience if you're on that part of the road. Outbound, though, there's not much of a problem. On Mombasa Road, it's moving slowly, but it's moving right around the JKIA turnoff, heading then towards Cabanas and out towards General Motors. It's moving, it's slow, but it's moving. Getting into the CBD, not too much of a headache this Thursday morning at all. Things might change later on in the afternoon, but for now it is looking pretty good. Incidents or accidents, let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. New Ogo, Nigerian by birth,
Nakuru,
Kenyan by choice,
Eldoret,
communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power,
live streaming to the world on
Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, newshound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. And this is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Looking at what the president did on the 1st of June, on Madaraka Day, he conferred some awards to Kenyans for their exemplary service. 68 Kenyans in total. And this is what the Gazette notice that was published on that day says. In recognition of their distinguished and outstanding service to the nation in helping steer our country through the coronavirus pandemic, I, Uhuru Kenyatta, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, confer national honours on the following persons. The Presidential Order of Service, this is being called the Uzalendo Award, was given to the 68 persons. Top on the list was Dr. Patrick Amoth, the Acting Director General of Health, Ayub Matiri, Major General Ayub Matiri, Jane Karuku, Dr. James Mwangi, Simon Wall. Among other notable names is the Chairman of the Media Owners Association, Washiro Aroro, who is also in the board, the Jane Karuku board, that is the Harambee Fund for COVID-19. We have various other personalities. And then we also have a key personality here called Dr. Mercy Korir. You know her.
I do know her.
Yes. Dr. Mercy Korir is one of our guest hosts for this season. Dr. Mercy Korir is KTN's medical journalist. And there were several other journalists who also got this award. Among them, Jeff Kuria, Asha Muilu, Robin Jogu, and others who work for Royal Media Services. And this has elicited a lot of reaction in the public. Those who said, well, yes, everybody basically saying, okay, we also join hands in recognizing that these are people who have done exemplary work from what the citation has been, that they have done this to help the country, to steer the country forward. But at the same time, there are those, especially in the media fraternity, who are saying that, look, many of the journalists, so let's look at the journalists that were awarded, 17 journalists in total. And the Media Council also came out, and Maina Mururi, the chairman, released a statement. He also said, we recognize that this is a timely recognition, as it creates a feeling of vindication from the term Getheri media to people who can be trusted to inform, educate, and entertain, which is the core of journalism. This is what he said, the chairman of the Media Council. Let's look at the journalists. We have got Chemutai Goin of Citizen, Purity Museo of KBC, Dr. Mercy Korir of KTN, Tabitha Rotich of Citizen Radio, Nasibo Kabake of the Daily Nation, Vincent Atea of Radio Citizen, Jeff Kuria of Inoro, Enoch Sikolia, Citizen TV, Robin Jogu, who's the managing editor for radio at Royal Media Services, Citizen TV, Asha Mwilu, Nelson Aruya, Citizen TV, Angela Okech of Nation Media Group, Faith Mailu, Philip Ogola, Caroline McKenna, Rebecca Mutua, Veronica Atieno, who've also worked in media in various ways. For example, Philip Ogola is very active on digital platforms on promoting information on healthcare. Now, this is what the Media Council said, that they recognize this, and they say the Media Council of Kenya delightfully congratulates the following journalists for their excellent work in the coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic, and recognizing that they have also been recognized by the highest office in the land, the Office of the President, and they've received the Uzalendo Award. However,
there's always one
question comes, how many of these have come from one media house? And that's where now the bone of contention comes in. And then the selection criteria also starts emerging. So when you have journalists from one media house dominating the awards, are you saying that this one media house has done more exemplary work in terms of highlighting the issues of COVID-19, in terms of creating awareness for COVID-19 and rallying the public towards the fight against COVID-19? Hey, that has brought in, big conversations in the media and also in the entire public domain. In who exactly are we awarding, who are we recognizing, and why are we recognizing them, and what exactly have they done to deserve this award? Let's speak to some of those veteran journalists now, okay? And one of them is Komchatsi Makoha. Komchatsi Makoha is a journalist, he's a critic, he's a satirist, he is a journalism lecturer as well. He has taught journalism. Komchatsi, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
And thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
I'm also going to bring in Maina Mirori. He is a reporter, commentator on social matters, and is also the chairman of the Media Council of Kenya. Maina, good morning. Maina Mirori, good morning. He's put the phone down for a bit. I think he's warming his tea. Komchatsi, let's begin with you. What's your reaction to the awarding of the personalities who were awarded by the president with the Uzalendo Award?
First of all, just to recognize that the president makes these awards in the name of the people of Kenya.
Okay.
Yep.
And my own conclusion is that he has not been the best husband of that resource historically.
Because of why?
He's awarded people whom generally we don't have consensus that have made huge or important contributions. Like that guy who was eating dessert out of a paper bag. But be that as it may, there are also instances, when he has done things that, we agree with when he awards Eliud Kipchoge after his world achievement.
Yep.
Obviously, we associate with that, and we are very proud of that. But coming to specifically these awards, my beef with them is that they have lined up government loyalists and civil servants at the expense of recognizing people who are actually making outstanding contribution. And when now you put journalists into that mix, it really creates a conflicting feeling, specifically because there's an adversarial relationship between journalism and government.
Yes.
So when you begin recognizing some journalists, and by the way, Masi Korir, all the guys who've been recognized are outstanding even before COVID-19. But when you now begin to recognize them as government, given also the not very good records that we've had from Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, you unfortunately place the mark of Judas Iscariot on their foreheads. You are basically saying that these people have been working for government, and that's not a very good thing to do, because government has some of the best journalists in its employ,
I think
both at State House and at the ministries.
Komchetsi, let's first of all expound on that one. When you say that when you look at the awards, this is a government that's awarding loyalists and civil servants, explain that. Just looking at the list of the people who've been awarded, we've got a CEO of Kenya Breweries, Jane Karuku. We've got Dr. James Mwangi.
Yeah.
He's not a civil servant. We've got Washiro Aroro. He's not a civil servant.
He donated 300,000 shillings personally.
300 million.
300 million. Sorry,
Yes.
I mix up the numbers. So you can instantly see the kind of thing. That's the criteria that the president considers as service. I know Lois Ombajo is doing a great job at infectious diseases, but I'm also a bit injured, because at times like this, I wonder, yes, there are those doctors, some of whom are doing work behind the scenes, but in my view, where people like the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board, who have generally had grievances about their welfare and the welfare of health workers, before he moved on to his new assignment, somebody like Ouma Olago was very clear. He said, this is not the time to talk about welfare. We are at the front line. We are in service. And, they have suspended their own well-being. Yeah, they said, look, this is now not about our well-being. This is about our service, and this is what we are doing. So now when I begin seeing the people who are heading government positions or government appointees like Jane Karuku, yes, she's at Breweries, but she's heading the COVID fund. You are very conflicted. You're very, very conflicted about that, because
I'm struggling to understand your confliction, Komchetsi. So here it is.
My conflict is that you're not recognizing the people who need to be recognized.
Okay.
Are you saying that the people who have been recognized do not deserve the award? Because if we talk about, let's talk about Dr. James Mwangi. Let's talk about Dr. James Mwangi, for instance. So he has donated his and his family's personal fortune, 300 million shillings, and said, I want to donate this to Kenya and Kenyans to the fight against COVID-19. Is that not something worth of recognition?
It is. But now the downside of that is that it means if I had 500 million shillings to donate, I could very easily buy myself.
You would be on the list.
Right?
Yeah.
That is very discomforting. The fact that you can buy this award, that I don't think that the Kenyan people are saying that when they give this award.
Can we also look at can we look at the selection? The idea in the minds of many is that there is the president looking across the Kenyan landscape in terms of those who practice during a particular season, and he himself makes this selection and says, I've noticed this individual, that one or the other. Is that the case, or does he do this at the advice of people around him?
Actually, the practice has been that national awards have previously been in the deputy president's office. There's a whole committee that advises the deputy president, who then forwards these names to the president. Now, I don't know what has happened in recent times, because, I think everybody in Kenya has a consensus that, for example, the head of state commendation had become one of the most abused awards.
Everybody has one.
Yeah, there's a procedure. One of the things about the Constitution is that it actually makes provision for how those selections are supposed to be done.
Yes.
So if we were following the law and the Constitution, we wouldn't be in this crisis.
And
we would not even be having this conversation.
Maybe what you can do is actually, let's just, for the sake of our audience, talk about what is the procedure of recognizing people to receive the presidential awards, the national awards.
The Constitution basically says that the president makes awards in the name of the people.
And
there's a national awards committee.
Yeah,
which sits and thinks through all these things and says, and sometimes they can fast track, especially when you're in a crisis like COVID-19. The committee can fast track and sit there and say, yeah, this requires, these are heroic moments, and there are people who stepped up and they've done this and the other.
Yeah.
Eliud Kipchoge, for example, did his marathon. It's 1:59, 1:59:59, and within a few days, he was being awarded. So there are certain things that might jump the queue because they're exemplary.
Yes.
And I think, you need to give the committee that leg room and that leeway to be able to make those decisions quickly. But there is a procedure. It's a legal procedure that needs to be followed.
Let's bring in now Joseph Maina, who's also on the line. Joseph, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
The conversation we are having is we are looking at the merit for presidential awards and specifically looking at the Uzalendo Award. What's your view on this, just off the top?
And specifically looking at the awardees in the journalism fraternity, because I think that's where I can talk more authoritatively. I feel that the communication we received from the government through the Gazette notice did not clarify why the people in this list received this award. Because it only gives a very general description that these persons have helped steer the country through the pandemic, which is fine. It's not contentious that this journalist listed here deserved an award also of some sort. My contention, however, is why they had to be this particular 17. Why the 17 were chosen and not others from the thousands we have accredited to practice journalism in the country. I feel that the Gazette notice and perhaps the press release from the Media Council should have shed some more light on why, or the metrics used in determining who deserved this award. My contention is that we have a lot more journalists who are also performing similar functions in different capacities and perhaps not as visibly as the few we have here.
Do you think that those others who may have contributed did a better job than those that were on the list?
I'm not in a position to say that they probably did, but I think the criteria should have brought that out. My feeling is that we could have journalists, radio, TV, and print, who are in far-flung areas and who are probably communicating to places ravaged with illiteracy and so on, and so the impact of their message is probably more felt in those particular publics they serve than the 17 who my feeling is that they are more visible to the powers of the day.
Okay. I think you're both saying the same thing, although now Komchatsi is saying that in his feeling, the people who are being awarded here are basically being rewarded for their loyal service to the administration. Is that so, Komchatsi?
Perhaps. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm basically saying is, especially what Joseph is saying is also true, and that is that I'm not saying that these journalists who've been awarded are loyal, but you create that impression, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, you can create that, and that's a very unfortunate thing to labor under as a journalist. Journalists are supposed to be independent. The moment, and government is one of the things, one of the institutions that journalists are supposed to watch. The problematic with this is that when you begin awarding journalists that you like, you rob them of that independence. You are a government-recognized journalist rather than a journalist who holds the government to account. And now, I mean, in even another forum, I was basically saying there are people who basically have helped us to understand even where there's malfeasance or suspicion of malfeasance around the use of COVID funds. I have Francis Gashuri in mind. And Francis is he was outstanding as many other journalists. But when now you exclude people like that, we begin sitting back and asking ourselves, especially in the absence of a criteria, we begin asking ourselves, are the people who are reporting suspected malfeasance at the Ministry of Health being punished through exclusion? Right? And for me, that is extremely disturbing. That is why I always think like journalists should be awarded by government, lifetime achievements. When you finished your work and retired and you can't write anymore, you can't broadcast anymore.
Yeah. Joseph, what would you have liked to see as a procedure for first of all identifying the journalists to be awarded and for forwarding those names to the president? What procedure would you like to see followed?
Number one, I think we should have very clear communication. The government ought to be clear when it says that we are rewarding journalist X, and this is the reason. This is the reason why we are not awarding journalist Y.
Okay.
This is also the reason why we've settled on a figure of 17. We have picked 17, perhaps because that's how much funding we have, or
how much space we have on the page.
Perhaps. For whatever reason, they settled on 17, and I contend that we have more than 17 journalists who have been talking about COVID-19 and in very excellent ways.
Do you think media bodies, for example, the Media Owners Association, the unions of journalists, the Media Council of Kenya in particular, should have a role to play in vetting or identifying people to be awarded?
Some commentators said that this is an ongoing conversation. I think all these bodies ought to be brought on board, and they should also be involved in some way. Although at this point, from where I sit, I can't say whether Media Council, the Editors Guild, and other representative bodies were involved. But I feel that they should also be involved. It should not be a government affair. We should not leave it to government mandarins to dish out these awards. I think they should be given on a merit basis, and the best persons to do that are the bodies you talk of.
Right.
I also have a problem with the media councils. The statement itself only goes ahead to praise or to congratulate these few, without delving into the question of whether these awards ticked all the boxes that we need ticked when we are awarding people. Yeah, I think that should have been raised at some point by the Media Council.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we see a situation where some of these bodies, journalism bodies in the country, would then be able to work hand in hand with government to make these selections? And not just on selections, but even to make them aware of the work that is being done in journalism across the board in the country. Is it about time this partnership became serious?
Yeah, but I think there should be some form of independence. Even as the government collaborates with the Media Council, there should be, the Media Council, for instance, should be left to assess on its own and probably provide the list of who it feels was best placed to receive the award based on professional considerations. I think we should not leave it to statecraft to determine who gets awards in journalism. Other professions, I think, are jealously guard their turfs, like medicine and law. I don't think you'd get these in the legal profession. The Law Society of Kenya would step in my thinking, and pick on its own.
Well, we've never had them raise issue or even congratulate those who receive presidential awards in the past. I'm sure many of the recipients of these awards are lawyers and doctors and engineers and accountants. And maybe these organizations do not really participate in this. I think the issue also takes us back to what Komchatsi was saying. The Constitution has set aside, has spelled out that the president shall create the awards, and also says that there shall be the committee that looks and vets and advises the president on who deserves an award. And basically, I think the whole issue is the clarity of versus opacity of the whole process. When does the committee sit? How does the committee receive, information, nominations, or even recommendations from members of the public? I could be sitting here and I think I know somebody who deserves state recognition, and I have no way of forwarding this to the top, Komchetsi.
Yeah, precisely. And also the thing about nominations is that journalism is a public-facing service. So my own thinking would not even be that the Kenya Union of Journalists and the Kenya Editors Guild, to which I belong, both of which I am a member of, should dominate the selection of journalists. The effect of journalism is felt in the citizenship.
Okay.
So if actually there was a way of harnessing the contributions of journalism to the national good, it becomes self-evident. Sorry to keep on going back to Eliud Kipchoge. When you do good, it becomes self-evident. If you actually went and did a straw poll on the streets of any town in Kenya and said, name for me the 4, 5, 6 journalists, you might actually come up with some of those names that the president has awarded. But people recognize them for the things that they have done. And so sometimes democratizing that award process takes away this suspicion and the fear that a very important national process is being instrumentalized and politicized and abused. Yeah.
So if, as we say, this one now it's been done already. Likelihood of any of these decisions being retracted is slim to none, right? So moving forward, and in reality, and this is for both of you, is it possible that then these bodies can be incorporated in the decision-making process based on what we are seeing and based on what people are clamoring for? Can it actually happen where government works hand in hand with bodies to make sure that even the selection can be seen as completely transparent, and it can be seen as one that is not working on favor of particular individuals whom are known, but goes across board to make sure that they are given out on purely merit?
I don't know if I can go first.
Yes, go
Yes,
ahead.
please.
I am fortunate. I'm very fortunate because I have the advantage of having served also as the former Chief Justice's communication advisor. And I believe that government and media needs to have a Chinese wall. This business about partnership is just language for compromising the media. So, people should just do their thing. Government should do its thing. Media should do its thing. And when it comes to making awards, I think, my top of my mind, I don't think Hillary Ngweno has an award. But, when you are sitting back and looking at the various fields of activity, anyone sitting, whether they are journalists or not, can sit and say, well, we haven't awarded anyone in journalism. Who are the outstanding people? And, believe you me, the guys who used to do KBC or whatever, if you are looking for outstanding people, you will find them.
You will find them there.
Yeah, so my view is that actually Kenya Editors Guild, Media Council, they should not be in bed with government. It is incest. It is bad. It's bad professional practice.
How do you draw that line, though, Komchetsi? For example, you at some point you were working in media, you are working as a journalist, and then you scale that Chinese wall, go into working with somebody who's a direct government person, official, and then after that you come back. How do you distinguish the lines between when I moved in and when I came back out?
You declare.
Okay.
And are you able to shed that jacket and say, well, at this time, I am basically working as a journalist. I'm looking forward like that across the wall to the government, and at this point, I am government, and I'm therefore want to.
Absolutely. Our two great ambassadors, our man in Canberra, Isaiah Kabira, former KTN boss, former PPU director.
Yep.
Excellent journalist. Up to today, if you tell him to do journalism, he'll do a brilliant job. But right now, he's an ambassador and he's working for government.
Yep.
Manoa Esipisu. Yeah, great journalist, CNN, Reuters, everything, travels the world. He came here, he was able to shed that jacket and say he's a government spokesperson. And there is no conflict, and I think we should not be able to say people can't go back. Once you've gone into government, you can go into government. Washira Waruru is a brilliant example. Went, worked at the EU, did whatever, and then went back to the Standard, Standard Media. Did a turnaround of the Standard and KTN, did a turnaround at KBC. So I think it's also to be able to say it's not a religion. Your employer is not a religion. You can work for government today, tomorrow you can work for private sector, and you can be called back into government. There's nothing wrong with that. So we shouldn't also criminalize journalists moving back and forth, as long as they declare the interest. What I find objectionable is having people who are actually operating for the public interest and therefore enjoy the privileges of journalism, carrying water for the government.
Right.
That's a problem.
Would you describe that to be the case for those who work for KBC or those who work for the Kenyan News Agency?
I know people at KBC and the Kenya News Agency who are very professional journalists. They cover the government functions, but they also do the other thing, which is the usual. They have the usual struggles that we even have had, those of us who worked for private sector media, but they are still able to do public interest journalism. So I don't want to paint anyone with one broad brush and say, they are all working for government. I think journalists generally are trained to do public interest work.
And yet therein lies the danger with what you've just described, Kwamchetsi, because when you say that it should be very clear when you're working as a journalist, you're not in bed with government, we must also remember there are journalists who are employed by government. And if we do that, then we may not be able to draw the line.
Precisely, and I was using my own personal example as an illustration, which is that, I was working for a government institution, an organ of state. And at that moment, then when I participate in the media, I participate as a guest. I am bringing something that, media feel that they can use, but it's identified and everybody knows. You account. You are accountable. The important thing about journalism, you have to be accountable. So all who are working as communication officers, Ministry of Transport, they are journalists here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they help governments to communicate. The people who are at State House are journalists here. They help the president to communicate. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a job. It's a very important job. Right? Yeah, but it's not a religion.
Joseph Maina, what do you think of that, Joseph?
I think, as Komchesi said, journalists are trained minds, so we know where to draw the line. It should be pretty clear. And one should be able to uphold their professional ethics, whether they're employed in the private sector, government, and so on. I don't think there should be conflicting interests getting in the way of one executing their role. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you for coming into the Situation Room. Komchetsi Makoha and Joseph Maina, veteran journalists, thank you very much.
Great to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day, gentlemen.
You too, sir. Thank you.
The conversation continues on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as Instagram, Spice FM KE. And also, remember, you can call in and participate in the conversations, 0719-012-600 at 28 minutes to 9. Let's take a look at weather and traffic, and then we come back and open the phone lines.
Looking at a bit dark in Nairobi today, 16 degrees, mostly cloudy. It's a bit warm. We'll only go to highs of 24 today and lows of 12. The chance of rain is still high. And in Nyeri at 17 degrees, showers expected later with highs of 23. In Nakuru at 16 degrees currently, highs of 24 expected with the showers that will come in later. Eldoret, forecasted thunderstorms currently at 16 degrees and will experience a high of 21. And 21 degrees in Kisumu with rain expected later, highs highs of 27 and lows of 19. Mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 18 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 16 with the afternoon rains today. It's partly cloudy and will remain so in Mombasa, currently at 26 degrees. We will see highs of 30. Highs of 29 to be experienced in Malindi, where it's mostly cloudy after a morning shower. 20 degrees in Kampala, and cloudy conditions will experience thunderstorms later with highs of 25 and lows of 19. Partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees. Foggy days ahead, highs of 32 and lows of 29. It's mostly cloudy in Johannesburg. We will see highs of 21 and lows of 4, where it currently stands at 8. And finally, for now, in Lagos at 27 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 25 with clear skies all through. All right, so still a jam-packed mess, as is some parts of Mombasa Road this morning. It's bumper to bumper, and there is traffic. Almost all 10 lanes are clogged up, and this is lower and upper on Thika Road this morning. So guys, it's one for the books, and it started late, so it's probably going to take us through most parts of early morning. That's Thika Road for you trying to get into the CBD. Kiambu Road, Kameshika Kushika, that's what we're being told. Very, very tight, guys. And from 4 lanes to 6, people are using anything else that looks like road this morning to get where they're going. It's bumper to bumper on Wayaki Way, as though people were going to school. I don't know why, but this is what we see as well. Heading down towards the CBD. Everywhere you look, it's quite crazy. You're going to have to be patient. We'll let you know how it opens up in a bit. Spice of MKE on Twitter. Let us know what you see.
(24:09). This is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. What do you make of what the gentlemen are saying?
Well, I hear there being calls for, transparency and making sure that it's across board, and that people who actually maybe be doing more work be brought into this. And I think it goes across board. There's certain people who are doing many things and may not be out there that maybe should have been recognized. And I think that it needs to be something that should be taken into consideration for sure. I think maybe the net needs to be cast a little bit wider. In some cases, and then it all goes to who is fueling information for this decision to be made.
Yeah, how is this information actually?
Yes,
the conversation has happened before. Remember, immediately we had the entire issue, the debacle around Githeri man receiving an award and wondering who are these people who are receiving awards, how do they receive the awards, and then it becomes clear that even the Constitution says that there shall be a committee that sits and advises the president on the awards to be given, but then the clarity ends there.
Yeah, it's
in terms
a bit
of the
awkward.
transparency.
Yeah.
Who is in this committee? When do they sit? What are the structures countrywide? Because like we keep saying, you'll find that you can go to any village in this country and you find people who the community says this person deserves recognition, even if it's whatever kind of recognition, but this person deserves a recognition. Yeah. How do we create a structure that we can feed into and say, come and vet so and so, and then this vetting is clear, and it can happen at community level. People come in and ask you, so what do you know about this person?
I think with any kind of selection, there's always going to be somebody who feels, or there is
left
always
out.
Going to be a group of people who feel left out, which is why it is very important then for the process to be seamless and transparent. Because then what you do is that even if somebody does feel left out, they would be able to look to the process and see, actually, this was carried out without any kind of, without any kind of favor.
Yep.
You see?
Yep.
So even if there are disgruntled parties to the selection, they would be able to look at the process and say, actually, you know what? It was fair in the way in which it went out. Even if I do feel bad, or I do feel disenfranchised from all of this, I can say, okay, there was no favor when this was being done. And I think that's at the crux of it, to say that the process was fair.
Unclear.
Yeah.
Nyambati calling in from Nairobi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
This is a very good discussion.
Mm-hmm.
It is long overdue. Yeah, first of all,
Yep.
Eric, you are aware of state capture,
Yes.
South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, I think it happened in Turkey. What we are having in Kenya is media capture.
Hey.
Okay.
I want to be very specific without beating about the bush.
Go ahead.
Remember Farida Karonei
Yep.
to government.
Mm-hmm.
Kanzedena
Mm-hmm.
to State House.
Yep.
So how do you... Wachira Waruru have done a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
So the government is just trying to coerce him.
Mm-hmm.
I've given 3 examples.
So what are
The
you saying?
last one-
What are you saying is that people who are performing exemplary well in the private sector...
No.
Uh,
I only said about Wachira Waruru.
yeah, but you mentioned the other two ladies. Why were you mentioning the other two ladies?
Yeah.
CS Karonei
what-
and State House spokesperson Kanzedena.
But I've already said it's media capture.
Explain,
Which means
because I'm
now-
not getting it.
You don't understand media capture?
No. In this particular case, in this instance, I'm not getting how media capture is playing out.
Let me ask the Nigerian lady, do you know state capture?
I understand what state capture is, but if we can open it up a little bit to what you're saying now, is that essentially what you're saying is that the state then is coddling some who are in the media to bring them over to the state side.
To be reported in the positive side.
So they're using individuals who would be in media, according to you, is what you're saying, who would be in the media to then bring them over to the state side to continue to give positive news about what the government would be doing.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying is being done here.
Which means now that media body will lose independence. And that is why many people who used to be watching KBC TV, people used to listen to KBC radio, moved away to the independent media because they are giving unbiased coverage. They are delving into issues which have not been delved into before. They are crossing barriers uncrossed before. So essentially what is happening and before I move any further, I can give one example that Vincent Atea of Citizen does not actually deserve the award. There is a gentleman, I think who is in the newsroom called Njogu, who deserves that award.
What's your criteria?
He has been doing a lot of commentary on this COVID. You see, this issue of giving these awards should not be looking at maybe publicity on radio, something like that. It should be looking at the hard issues. I think somebody was talking there earlier about people maybe who could be in far-flung areas who are making big impact.
Yeah.
So this state capture now, basically what it means is that the populace will start losing confidence in that media house as a house which is supposed to be incisive,
Okay.
unbiased. So basically,
Okay,
I've
Nyambati.
talked about media capture.
Okay, Nyambati, you get your point. Thank you very much for your contribution, and thank you for tuning
and
in.
this-
This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, you can call in 0719-012-600. Also, you can join the conversation via social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. We're talking about, how do we ensure that there is, more participation of the public? Because just like Kumchatsi said, the president declares and confers these awards on behalf of the people of Kenya. So, and this is where, again, those who really champion public participation would come in and say, this is one of those avenues where public participation is really, really needed. So that you can feel that the people are the ones who are rewarding
And owned the process.
and they're owning the process, and they're recognizing those who stand out in their community. When we want to start promoting national values and ethos, this is one way of doing it. This can be one tool that we can use, saying that anybody who receives, for example, an award of the Burning Spear Award or the Golden Heart Award or the Presidential Head of State Commendation Award, all these people have been identified from the communities in which they serve, because it's because of your service to the people of Kenya that you're receiving this award.
Yes, it's on behalf of the people. So I think there's a lot of play of words that could be used here, so that you can say that I take my responsibility, he as the president takes his responsibility representing the people of Kenya to confer this award, or saying that this is what the people of Kenya think. And because they have thought this, then we are giving this to you.
Yep.
So yes, public participation could come into play here, get public views as you would with other things, and hear now what people have to say about this. By virtue of the fact that this is not the first time this conversation is being had in terms of then who deserves these awards at whatever level that you want to look at them, at MBS, ECH, ECG, all of this, at whatever level you want to look at it. If it is still on behalf of the people, then yes, you would ask yourself that yes, public participation needs to be played here. But I'm still going to the process of it, that the process by which this decision is being made must be transparent. It must be clear to people how this is done, because then whether somebody is happy or unhappy with it, they can always go back to the process and say this was done in the right way. And I think for many things that's what it should follow.
It boils down to that. People need to feel like it was clear that even if we had subjected this through a public participation, Eliud Kipchoge receiving the second highest award in the land was deserved, right? So we can say, yes, this is the second highest award in the land, the elder of the order of the Golden Heart. Eliud Kipchoge gets the EGH. It's fantastic because of what we have seen, how he has positioned us, internationally, and the kind of achievements that he has done throughout his career, how he has brought us together, how he has communicated to everybody, all generations in the country. People have felt that this person deserves it. Others, so far, what we're seeing is an automatic one. For example, if you become a cabinet minister, automatically you get the EGH.
Yeah, you ask yourself, so what under what
If
criteria?
you become a leader of other arms of government, if you become the Speaker of the National Assembly, Speaker of the Senate, Chief Justice, automatically you get the EGH. Go below that. If you become the leader of majority or minority in any of these two houses, automatically you get EGH. If you become a governor, automatically you get the EGH. But sometimes maybe we should be saying that it should not be automatic.
It shouldn't be automatic, of
It
course.
doesn't mean that just because you've been elected as governor by the people, then now you have risen to the level of EGH. You should start at a certain level. Maybe you say, all right, because you have been elected, people have entrusted you with this office, then you get the Entrusted Office Award.
Or how dare we even say that perhaps you need to do a thing or three before we
Before
can
we
then
even
now
give you
see and
anything.
award you something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because you've elected you doesn't mean that therefore you deserve to be awarded.
Because then you are
No.
awarded and then you go and cock up and then what happens? I
We
mean,
know
really.
so many governors now who have EGHs walking around with an EGH, and you're wondering, surely this guy walks around with a sash. EGH, Governor so-and-so EGH. And you're like, was it the right thing to do?
Was it the right decision to
Was
have
it
been taken, for
the
sure.
right decision to actually take at this point? We should have a very, very clear structure of awarding them. And again, I personally have absolutely no issue with the 60 people who are awarded.
No, I don't think that's the point. I think
The 60, they deserve it. Because clearly, somebody somewhere sat and looked and saw that they have done something. Even if we talk about Jane Karuku, who's now gotten to a point where she's been told, please, chair this fund.
There's something.
This fund has raised 3 billion shillings. Dr. Patrick Amoth is the Director General of Health. He's the senior most medical person in the country. He's the one who's steering this fight against COVID, basically from that front. So they deserve it. Even the journalists, all of them, they deserve it. Somebody somewhere sat and said, it's because you're practicing journalism. You have contributed something towards this
the fight
against COVID-19.
For sure.
12 minutes to 9. Keep it right here. Shortly, we'll be speaking to one of the awardees, Dr. Mercy Korir, KTN's medical journalist. Okay, so let's now speak with one of us who got recognized by the president, and this is an important thing that you get recognized because of the work that you've done. Dr. Mercy Korir.
Good morning, Eric.
Hello,
Good
Mercy.
morning.
Good morning,
Hello.
Daktari.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you guys?
Fine. We can
We're
hear
well.
we can hear you smiling from here.
Thank you for keeping the fire going.
You sound fresh.
Yeah.
You were really
sometimes.
you're recharging your batteries, which is a very good thing.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you need to do that. Otherwise, you'll not have any energy left to continue doing what you're supposed to do.
Is this what your doctor told you?
This is what all doctors will tell you.
Dr. Mercy, congratulations on receiving the Uzalendo Award.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure you heard the conversation that we were having earlier with the veteran journalist Joseph Maina and Komchat Simakoa, who were talking about, well, it's okay, receive the award, but let's have some clarity on why this person and why not the other. And the whole conversation about the process. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, so for me, I'm always systems person and fair processes, everything. That there should be no doubt. We should not doubt the legitimacy of any award, not just this one, because of people raising issues about how people got appointed or got awarded. People not being clear about what was the criteria used. So when there are many questions around that, or when people from historical perspectives think that this thing is about so and so knowing so and so names are there, that it causes a lot of legitimacy issues on those awards, and they stop being prestigious. You can take, for example, the knighting by Queen Elizabeth. I've never had anyone raise doubts. Maybe they are there, but by and large, it's usually such an honor that you are listed, because the criteria and everything around it is so strict and meticulous, and by the time your name is there, people actually look back and say, oh, okay, we can see why, So not just for this one, but any other award, I think the process and the criteria should be clear to everyone, so that the legitimacy of all of this is not cast in doubt.
To quote the Supreme Court, the process is as important as the result.
Exactly.
You get here because you deserve it, and also get here so everybody can see that there was a process, there was due process that was followed in identifying you, even when they all agree that yes, this person deserved it, but you can see that they say, well, we know that the people who are identifying them included so and so. This brings the issue also to remember what we were talking about, the Senior Council with the Law Society of Kenya and the entire debacle and the fallout. The Senior Council committee sat and they came up with a list, and the other members of the fraternity thought, wait a minute,
why them, not us?
We don't see
exactly.
We don't see like there was proper procedure followed in identifying these particular individuals.
So yes, that I think solidifies the argument that the process is important, because at the end of the day you may still end up with the same name, but if people feel like there was consultation, there was public participation, if I may call it that they were involved, people own the process. And people do not cast it out, like you're saying, Ale. You need, this is a people's award. I mean, even look at this Uzalendo award. It is not because we are any special.
Yeah.
But for journalists now, because the work we do is for the public. So the public should be involved in one way or another in deciding. So maybe they were involved, I do not know myself.
Yeah.
But if they were, I think the committee or the people behind it should come and say, these are the people who sat. This was the criteria, and this is why we ended up with so and so, this many people. And people will be okay, because you'll feel like, these people represented me, maybe the church, or I don't know, these people, media council, they represented. So you'll feel like, okay, we were represented.
Right, so people were represented.
Let me bring in our friend Zachary in Nakuru. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, good morning, you guys. I've only had you through the phone.
Paule, we know we're having some technical issues in Nakuru on 96.0. Our engineers are on the site. They are working to rectify that. In the meantime, continue using the phone. You can catch us on our social media platforms as well.
So let me take this opportunity to congratulate our girl, Mercy Korir.
Yes.
I guess he was the one. I guess he was the one who was honored as one of our distinguished citizens.
Yes.
Oh, congratulations, Mercy.
Asante.
Yeah. But do not be drinking that. Continue working hard. Yeah. So, can you tell the engineers to make sure that by saa sita tutakuwa tunareceive? Like me, I'm stressed. People want to take me to hospital.
Yay, Paul.
Yeah.
Because I know our engineers are monitoring the signal, so they can hear the signal coming from the studio. They have heard you. They have heard you, and they're working on it.
I'm telling my neighbors that they don't worry. They only need to buy me milk, and I manage the situation where I'm still in quarantine.
And you'll be okay. Paul is Anna Zachary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Nasi, so the 6th of June is coming. We will be discussing that in the next hour. What do you see panning out? What do you see the president saying?
Remember the conversation we had with one of the ambassadors?
Yes.
About lifting the measures, the containment measures, on a phased approach.
Yes.
So if I were the president, because he's in a catch-22 situation, he's in a difficult situation, where on one hand you have the health of the people here, on the other hand you have the economy, that is the health of the economy, which is also getting a beating from the coronavirus. So if I were him, I would do a phased approach to lifting the containment measures. As we've been saying, we cannot live like this forever. We need to find a way out. We need to live. So we need to find a way of, one, as I call it, mainstreaming the coronavirus into our everyday lives, into our health system. Because one, what we've seen is that the disease is not as bad for us. The data shows you that 80% of the people who've been infected do not have any symptoms. So they would be like you, Latif, or you, Ndu, you're still in the office. If you've not been tested, you won't know. And you'll probably never know that you ever had COVID.
Yes.
So it means a good number of your population will not have any symptoms. And then the other, about 18%, almost 19%, have mild symptoms. A fever, a cough that wanes after some time, or on some medication. Then the other point is that between more than 50% of the people are between 20 and 40 years. So these are your healthy individuals, these are your productive individuals. So even if they are out there and they get infected, you can bet your chances are that they will not get sick. So the thinking should be, for those who are likely to get a severe illness, what response measures do we have for them? Are our hospital facilities ready for that particular group of people? And now, by mainstreaming, I mean all hospitals should be ready to handle the coronavirus, just like we did with HIV, so that you do not have, an isolation center for coronavirus that is in the city or in one place in the country. It should be all over, so that in any facility, if you go to your most rural facility X and they suspect that you have COVID because you've come in with symptoms or you're sick, they should have somewhere to put you in isolation and somewhere to take care of you, without being ferried from one corner to the other, and all, the ambulance, the police, the security apparatus, and which has just stigmatized the whole thing.
True.
That way, then people start seeing this as something that they can fight.
And they buy into the fight. Stay on the line, Marcy, as we come to the top of the hour, and then we'll begin this conversation with you at the beginning of the hour, which is what we expect the president to do and what we are prepared to live with post the 6th of June 2020, because the president has said he's already signaled that we are going to start coming out of the strict measures. What is it that we expect to do? So today's proverb, Marcy, is from Botswana. Mm-hmm. And it says, are you ready?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Kizungu mingi na catwalk haikupeleki mahali popote.
That's what they say in Botswana.
Beautiful words do not put porridge in the pot. Beautiful words don't put porridge in the pot. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Okay, so concerning traffic, our trouble spots this morning, Thika Road and a little bit of Mombasa Road. But Thika Road today, it seems that it's feeding off from all kinds of drama coming in from Kiambu Road, coming in from Muthaiga, coming in, so it's all the way, it's backed up and it's bumper to bumper. As you get to the Pangani underpass, this is where we're going to see some problems. All right, apart from that, we don't seem to have much more. A little bit on Mombasa Road, but that will clear up as you head towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and then get into the CBD. Apart from that, everybody should be absolutely fine. If something does change, don't hesitate to let us know. Spice of MKE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher,
it's Kenya's
academic,
biggest conversation. Again,
seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
We understand that, we have some technical issues in that area, and our engineers are saying they are down there, they're working on it, they'll be sorting out the issues shortly. In the meantime, catch us on www.spicefm.co.ke. You can also catch us on Facebook, Spice FM KE. We live stream this show every morning. We also live stream the show on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and Twitter, Spice FM KE. So, you may not have us on terrestrial, but you have us on digital. Tumetoka analog, tuko digital. For the time being. Mercy, we were talking about the measures that we expect to see the president announcing coming out of the COVID-19 strict containment measures. But at the same time, so let's look at the practical things. Number one, we are still getting new cases being announced on every day. So we have community transmission has not stopped. One. Two, we also know that most of these cases are in Nairobi and Mombasa. And then the other counties are now getting 1 or 2 cases. Yesterday we saw a new case in Nyeri, in the counties of Nyeri and Nyeri South. So if we, for example, if we were to talk about the cessation of movement from Nairobi Metropolitan, would you advise the president to open up movement into and out of Nairobi?
I would think of it as expanding your list of essential services.
Okay.
And look at who else. I do not have like an example in mind, but look at who else would need to do movement between one county and the other one. And then give them a pass or an allowance to move from outside Nairobi Metropolitan or Mombasa. That way, you open up the number of people that can contribute to the economy.
But from the feedback, even from your work in reporting on COVID-19, and from what you hear and see, are there sectors that desperately require to cross over into and out of Nairobi that have been hindered by this, that are not part of the list so far?
No, desperately no. But I'm looking at it as because you see, you remember when you're having the discussion about home-based care.
Yep.
That when you have very few people, that is the time to test the system and see if you can handle it. So for me, this is just like as an experiment to see if we open for anyone else. How will the environment look like? How will our transmission rates look like? Because you are working towards opening up everything at the end of the day. So start small, kidogo, by the people who you think might need to move around. Let's say, I'm just quickly thinking about construction workers, people who are building roads or something, who maybe engineers are in one part of the country, they need to go across, architects, things like that. Because then that way, what that allows you is to monitor, the same way you've been able to monitor your healthcare workers, you've been able to monitor people on food trucks and things like that. So you'll be able to know that this is the cohort of people that we are looking at, we are monitoring to see how the environment is responding to them in regards to COVID. So not that it's those ones, but that's how I'm thinking. You phase it out, and then the other part to look at, and it's a very dicey one, is a public transport. I think one, we need to make it better in 2 ways. Right now, people are paying double. If you're moving from Eastlands to town, you need at least 200 bob per day. Otherwise, you can't move. So it's becoming expensive to move around. So how can we work around that so that, one, the Mwananchi who needs to still go to town to transact their businesses and whatnot still has something at the end of the day to go back home with.
Right.
And public transport for me is a big issue because it is a big deal. It's where transmissions are likely to happen because of the nature of not even the
it's a catch-22.
So you open it up and more people are moving. We're opening it up, more people are moving. We are going to see heightened levels of transmission.
But you see, already, it's not even about the transport itself, but at the terminal. I don't know if you've seen at the terminals, people are still crowded.
Yeah.
But when they get into the matatus,
they're observing the distance.
So how does that help? If a transmission is about to happen, it will have happened in the terminal. So we need to address that from that point first. So if people are crowding, then they can still continue sitting 3-3. Or you expand.
Maybe actually, I'm just thinking about that because you brought in a good point. I do not think that the restriction on the numbers inside a PSV should be lifted, because I mean you've got to still maintain that issue of physical distancing. Maybe one way of looking at it is license the upcountry buses, all the upcountry buses that are now no longer going between Nairobi and Mombasa, between Nairobi and other parts of the country, allow them to operate within Nairobi, for instance. So you have an increase in the number of vehicles, increase in the number of, now you have larger buses which are now, because they are not licensed to operate as matatus in the city, we allow them to operate as matatus in the city. So you find an entire Otange bus coming from Kawangware to the CBD. It will carry more people in one trip.
Yeah, and you can even have it, it doesn't have to get into the CBD,
Yep.
but you can have, all of these things, all of this stamina everywhere is created by man. You can create another stopping point for them where people can now walk. But we need to relook at that if we are thinking of allowing people to move up and about. And my other thing is, I think we also need to allow some people to move out of the city, out of Nairobi and Mombasa cities. I think we need to allow to expand the number of people that need to move out of the city.
Where do you want them to go?
Where are they going?
They are going to the village. Like when I was saying, if you have somebody who's doing constructions, roads, engineers, and all of those things like that, you can allow them to move. But you just need to think about who is critical for this economy that we can allow to move.
Yeah.
So it's about who, and then now that way you are able to control the movement in and out. The other one,
bars.
Sorry, Eric.
Yes. No, for me, bars are not a priority. As in, we've seen when people are allowed to have one beer, we've seen the chaos that is already
It becomes
there.
10.
So, yes, I would put it at the bottom of the list when you have already piloted with your essential things, like the transport we are talking about. The other one, before we go to bars, that I've been thinking of is the curfew hours. Because now curfew is at 7, places close at 3, 4.
Yep.
And supermarkets at like 5. So you have limited the time in which people can do businesses and move around.
Yep.
So maybe is to reduce the curfew hours. I would put it at 11 p.m.
11 p.m.
Yes.
Jeez.
Mercy. You put it at 11 p.m., people are going to be out at 1. And then, there's really no... How are we going to actually make sure that will be done? You heard, just now, if you can use the same example of alcohol, extrapolate that to people being out. You give them 1, they take 10. You give them 11 o'clock, 1 a.m., they're going to be out doing God knows what. So where are we really going to draw the line? Is it possible to draw the line anywhere?
Maybe the indicator should be looking at the transport sector and looking ordinarily, when do the peak hours end? Right? So we know that peak hours is when people are going back home in the evening. When do matatus now start noticing that, all right, so we've cleared the bulk of the people who needed to go back home?
By 9 p.m.
There you go. So I think maybe we should work with those within those hours. I also saw the chairman of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industries was advocating for the same. And I think also the KEPSA was advocating for the same. 9 p.m. being...
But I was thinking... of hotel businesses, because people sometimes have meetings, workshops, and things like that, and those are some of the things that run the hotel business.
Yep.
And they would have them maybe 9 people would want to have dinner and have some time. So
hotels are open. Sleep there.
Okay. I get home at 9. But anyway, the point is to expand.
To expand the curfew, yes. The normal working hours. Reduce the curfew
so that
hours.
You expand your working hours. Then that allows the matatu business and people doing their own other businesses to still have more time to do work. So for me, I would look at them from that point. And as I say, you have to look at what your public health data and information on COVID-19 is telling you as a country. As we've seen, many countries, people have tried this model here, this model there, but everyone at the end of the day is customizing it according to what their numbers are.
I think it's interesting that you brought that up, Dr. Mercy, because if you want to say that the decisions that you make are informed by data, right? Now, what have we heard over the last couple of days? I think this news came out at us from Tuesday that, Camry has complained, the Ministry of Health has complained that we're not going to, the initial decision that was taken was that they're going to ramp up testing and that there was going to be targeted community testing, right? Now the problem is that they don't have enough test kits to do this. We've seen increased number of cases from testing vis-a-vis the number of tests that are being carried out in the country over the last week or so. The last time we hit 3,077. Since then, the numbers have been decreasing. But the number, now if you want to compare, has increased to the number of tests that are being done. And now we are being told that we don't have enough as a country to be able to test as much as we would like to. How then are we going to make an informed decision when the data that you have being presented is not adequate to do so?
And we've seen even the best of countries are not able to test.
Exactly.
I don't think anyone will be able to test everyone. It's impossible.
Of course not.
I don't think anyone will. You will not get as many numbers as you would want to get. But with what we have so far, it's 3 months into the virus. I think the information that we have so far, in my opinion, is enough to give the policymakers some direction in what they are supposed to think and advise the president or advise the NERC. Because, as you said, simple things like who are your most vulnerable group, what are the numbers that they are getting, who is most infected in the country, where are they infected. I mean, you have that data.
Okay.
And two, you're seeing yesterday, Camry released results about the genome sequencing. That is like doing a fingerprint of the COVID-19, the coronavirus in the country. And you're seeing that, okay, the strain that you have in your coastal region is European-centric, and then when you test among the people, you're able to see if person A has a virus that its genome sequence is like this, and person B it has varied by 100 or so away, then it means this thing has spread so far. But if the difference between A and B is like two genetic differences, then your spread has not gone so far. So you see, this is some of the information that is coming out that is in government possession, that they are able to see, okay, this thing, it came from here, this is how it is doing in Europe, this is how it is doing for us guys here, and so we are able to make certain decisions. And with that information, and that is the data I'm talking about, I think they're able to make some decisions. And for me, I think it is time that we've opened up in a way, slowly. Bit by bit, you de-escalate a bit, and if the information you get after that de-escalation tells you that things are getting bad,
you can always go back.
To close.
You can go back. Yeah, true.
Yeah, but you have to test. And for me, as I say, when the numbers are fewer, like we are now, we are not seeing tens of thousands of people confirmed yet. When the numbers that you have are fewer, then it means you are able to you
can tinker around with some of the measures.
Yes, you're able to work around them, escalate, de-escalate. You're able to move around as opposed to when there's a full-blown outbreak.
Yeah. Mercy, thank you very much for joining us today. We want to allow you to go back into your relaxation, the R&R.
Thank you.
And we'll keep talking.
Thank you, Daktari.
Asanteni sana. You guys have a good day.
You too. So we'll open up the phone lines. Just keep listening and hear what people say. We want to open up the phone line 0719-012-600. What do you think? What do you expect the president to announce on the 6th of June? This is this Saturday. What do you expect the president to announce? He has already indicated that the government is already considering some of these measures being loosened. cessation of movement. We know we have curfew. We know we have issues on physical distancing. We know we have a discouragement of non-essential workers going to offices, even in public office, government offices. There are very many non-essential work staff that are considered non-essential who have not been going to work. What do we expect the president to announce? Good morning. Let's take a look at the weather. And then this conversation continues. 0719 012 600, 18 minutes after 9.
All right. In Nairobi, the sun is peeking out right now. We will see highs of 24 today and partly cloudy conditions for most parts of this Thursday. 18 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nyeri at the moment. The showers will come down soon. Highs of 23 and lows of 13. Nakuru sees us as mostly cloudy conditions this morning. 24 degrees the high and lows of 13. It's likely to be a wet morning as you go west. Thunderstorms predicted for Eldoret. Currently at 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 12. Kisumu at 22 is mostly cloudy, highs of 27 and lows of 19. Kakamega at 20 degrees is cloudy all through, and it will be a rainy afternoon. Mombasa at 27 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 25 with partly cloudy conditions. Malindi at partly cloudy conditions at 28 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 25. All right, let's look into East Africa, where light rain showers have already begun in Uganda, and it will probably go into thunderstorms later with highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam, partly cloudy conditions takes us to a high of 32 and lows of 23. Taking a look then into Johannesburg, where it's mostly sunny at 8 degrees, highs of 21 and lows of 4. In Lagos, it's clear skies this morning at 26 degrees. However, the fog is threatening to come a bit lower, highs of 32 and lows of 25 through today. All right, we'll take a quick last look into Paris, where as promised, the rains have already started coming down at 13 degrees, likely to be that way with thunderstorms warning at yellow. So highs of 18 and lows of 11. And then a look into London, where with cloudy conditions all through at 12 degrees, it's likely to be a grey and foggy morning and day, highs of 18 and lows of 10. And we'll look lastly into New York right now, where cloudy conditions at 20 degrees will furnish the day, highs of 30 and lows of 19.
Well, it's 23 minutes after 9, so we know in 2 days' time, on Saturday, the president is expected to address the nation, during which he will speak about our progress in the fight against COVID-19. He has already indicated that he's asked the National Emergency Response Committee to sit back and look at what measures can we put in place to continue our containment and what measures can we start relaxing so that we allow people to go back into their daily lives, economic activity, because the economy has been hard hit and we've got all these things that are happening. And we're asking for your opinion. What do you expect the president to say on Saturday? 0719-012-600. Roderick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sir.
Okay, I expect the president to not reopen schools. One, two. I think you can open. We can open and people move around, but in a restricted manner. But the highest standards of hygiene should still be implemented. But still, I still insist that learning institutions should not open. They should just let maybe if they candidates. Maybe go to schools, back to schools, maybe the class 8, Form 4, and maybe the university last year candidates, so that they can be spread across all the classes. You see, at least a class has like 5 or 10 or whatever. For those ones, you can take a priority. But for now, till maybe next year, I think the president should consider this and not reopen schools.
How about places of worship?
Places of worship can open, yes, but they can have the restrictions whereby they have water, sanitizer, and also whereby with a congregation of 100, they should do 30. And not more than an hour, 45 minutes, half an hour to 45 minutes, they're out. They can have more services. Yeah, that's what I think maybe they should do.
Curfew,
bars, tukunywa kwa nyumba. Because our culture, people go to Dunda from Westlands, they go Dunda, bypass, before they reach home, they've made like 10 or 15 stops. So I think it should be restricted hours of drinking, maybe by 7, everybody's home.
So what you're saying then is as long as you have invited your friends to your house, your neighbors should not call the police on you.
No, don't invite people. You drink in the house.
Okay.
If it's must that you have to, you drink in the house. Don't invite your friends.
Okay.
No guests. Just let's continue with this social distancing thing. And also, people should be restricted the movement of our country. Many tests along the way, or maybe amount of people who are traveling. Maybe the amount of people cannot leave the town. There's a cap whereby, because now, the vulnerable are the ones who are in the rural village there. And the old people are there. Let's just be careful. This thing should turn into a disaster.
Thank you, Roderick.
Thanks, Roderick.
Yeah.
Anthony in Kisumu.
Good morning, Eric and Ndu.
Good morning.
I'm told Corona is the new normal, so we should just resume normal. One, the cessation of movement from the hotspots into the hotspots should be sustained.
Okay.
Nairobi, Mombasa remain with the cessation. I'm still battling to know what curfew does in containing Corona. Because if I have to walk between 5 and 7 p.m., chances are I can get it even
between 5 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Yes, so the curfew should be lifted. The cessation of movement in the hotspots should be sustained. The places of worship, we need God. Even the first day, I think the president brought people to pray at State House. We'll be allowed to pray, of course, with the guidelines, like no the social distance. If my church can accommodate 50, let it have 20.
Okay.
And if the building is small, we have church compounds, we can put tents.
Okay.
Because we need God. And for schools, it's not a necessity. Even the professor himself, the CS for education, it might be difficult to contain, especially in public schools where we have classes of up to 70, 100 pupils. And maintaining social distance. If they go to the football pitch, it's not conducive for learning. So the schools can hold until we go to normal. So I'm told this is the new normal. Then the places of worship should be allowed. The curfew should be lifted. But the cessation, as we monitor the situation, should continue.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. Good
Thank
day.
you. And what do you do? Or do you think about this? 0719-012-600. What do you expect the president to announce on Saturday in terms of the containment measures that the government had put in place to combat and to contain COVID-19 in the country? What do you think?
Well, I think. Oh, look. Let's be honest. I think the desire, the desire is to open up completely. That's what everybody will want. For things to go. This new normal, people don't like it, and this is across the world, right? This new normal. I think the part I like is the sanitation point of view. The more hygienic that we can be, fantastic. But
do you see people maintaining these hygiene practices?
I think so. I think people are going to have it at the back of their mind because over the last 90 days or so, people have been conditioned to be cleaner, to maintain, higher levels of hygiene. So that's something that I think that people are going to want to keep. And it would be great to see a lot of these public spots.
So people will not shake hands, but people will hug.
And more. But,
Because
the handshaking has said to be it is a channel of transmission. We know that. And not just for COVID, for other things. It is a channel, it's a tool of transmission of very many things. And so it would be nice to see that maintained. And I think that because of the conditioning that now people have gone through, it's something that people are going to keep at the back of their minds that we need to actually do this. I mean, if you look at masks, for example, the Chinese and a lot of people in the areas where smog is so heavy, they were used to this already, right? They had been conditioned to having to wear that because of the environmental factors that they've had to face. So for something like this, it wasn't a far cry from what they've had to do. So you can imagine if something else comes along, whereby it's going to require us to wear masks or wash our hands, we would have been adequately prepared for that because of COVID, right? So there's certain things about what we are experiencing as the new normal, which I would hope that we would actually keep. However, I do feel as if the president and those that advise him and his office are going to take into consideration the fact that we're still dealing with very many things that we don't know, right? And that there's still some things that are going to be maintained with what we are currently facing. And I think that hotspots are going to be taken into consideration. I think that schools, having been the largest institution that was shut down at the very beginning, I think the status quo currently is going to be maintained. I don't think schools will be opened. With the curfew, I don't see that as either being here or there. I don't see...
So, do you belong to Anthony's school of thought where you're not seeing the effect of having a night curfew?
No.
The night curfew has a lot of impact.
People were at home and they were going to sleep,
No.
or people were out anyway.
No, exactly.
Even during curfew, quote unquote, people were out anyway.
But now, because of the enforcement of the curfew, you've reduced the number of people who are out.
I would like to see, I don't know if it's possible right now. It would be nice to see the effect that keeping people at home during those curfew hours had on the transmission of COVID.
It'll be holistic.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to see that.
Curfew plus reduction plus championing better hygiene standards. All those things will come in holistically. I'm not sure that they'll be able to tell you exactly because of curfew. Our numbers could have been here, but we've dropped them to this point. It'll be holistic. But I think it's interesting if we can get to understand from the government's point of view, especially from the health perspective, what curfew, what is it that night activities would do to spread the disease, and this has been contained. Okal Martin in Kisumu, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okal, what do you expect to hear from the president on Saturday?
He should actually advise people to continue with masking and washing. Then any other thing should be lifted.
Everything else?
Yeah, isolation of Nairobi, Mombasa should be lifted.
Curfew lifted.
Should be done away with.
PSVs should continue carrying the people to their maximum capacity.
PS vehicles. This thing of corona of ours, I think it is very friendly in Kenya. And people should just, live with it, coexist with it.
Don't you think, Okal, that the measures that the government put in place immediately have worked in you seeing what you're seeing now?
I do not think so, because actually there is no mass testing. Even you may be having it, but you do not know.
True.
Yeah, so I think it is very flatter for us, and the government should find a way on which it can actually make sure that those vulnerable are protected. But healthier people like us definitely continue with the usual businesses.
Okay.
Because now we are talking about the life and the livelihood.
Yes.
And of course, if we damage our livelihoods, the government will actually damage the capacity on fighting it.
True.
Anyway.
True.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Okal. Bernard in Nairobi.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Morning, Do.
Good morning.
Now, my opinion is we should open up.
Mm-hmm.
Financial institutions should start operating as normal. People should leave work at 5.
Yep.
Coffee should be moved probably from 7 to 9 so that it allows people to get back home from work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the issue of the night curfew, to be honest, Eric, we have to accept that we are Kenyans with peculiar habits. People are still dying everywhere, Eric, and I'm not going to say specifically where because of the death of spoiling the business.
Mm-hmm.
But clubs are operating like normal during the day.
Mm-hmm.
People are out socializing, drinking, and we can't avoid that. So all we need to do probably is come up.
Bernard?
To relate, but they should open it up so that people then don't have to look like they're stealing.
Thank you, Bernard.
And
Francisca, I think we have an issue with your line, Bernard. Francisca, good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you, sir. How are you, all of you?
Good morning, fine, thank you.
Yeah, Chitimbi and Erica, I'm here at Ferry.
Mm-hmm.
And me, maoni yangu tu ni president afungue kila kitu.
Kila kitu.
Kila kitu apart from ile matatu kuingia, matatu ziangaliwe sana.
Okay.
Lakini watoto kurudi shule, wacha niwaambie wenzangu hapo hivyo. Watoto hata saa hivi vile naona tu kila watoto wanacheza tu, watoto wa ile nyumba, watoto wa hii nyumba, watoto wa hii nyumba. Mimi as in from the first go nilikwambia niko na mtoto wako class 8 na form 4. Those people, they need to go to school. Nini kile kinazuilia kweli watu? Vile Ogal, me I'm for that gentleman who is called your girl. President ni aende afungue kila kitu. Lakini pombe kila kitu chote kiendelee kama normal. Apart from tufunge mask. Kama vile dunia zile zingine watu walikufa sana hata kuliko Kenya. Kama Italy, kama Sweden, Denmark. Kwanza kuna pahali kama pahali pengine kazini yangu Nyeri amenelewa huko Denmark. They haven't even closed schools. And those people, ni kule kuna wazee wale wanakufa kama mchwa. Kwa hivyo ni president tu afungulie watoto waende shule. Watoto wanacheza hapa mtaani kama kawaida. Hata what's the difference between shule na mtaani? Hey, what is the curfew for? Kwani wewe huwezi kupata corona usiku utapata mchana peke yake? Hey, excuse me. President wacha afungue kila mtu watu wajua kali kama sisi tuingie kazini.
Lakini sasa kama utafungua kila kitu, Francisca, if we say that we open everything, then why not the PSVs as well?
The what?
Matatu, mbona unasema matatu lakini matatu bado tuendelee na hizo vikwazo?
Matatu, unajua kila kitu ni biashara ziendelee, shule ziendelee. Yaani wao wako kazini kule hivyo, naona tu wanasalimiana kule hivyo na Ruto juzi wakiwa kazini kama kawaida. Na sisi huku chini hatuko kazini sisi. Especially Mombasa County. Mombasa County ni kutoka Lungalunga mpaka Pate Island. Hatuko kazini sisi, huku tumefungiwa kabisa, hata hatuwezi tukaenda kusalimia wenzetu wale wako pale na pale hivi. Mimi hapa Ferry saa hii nakwambia, ukiona ile laini watu wamesongamana hapa hivi. Mazee mimi sijui kama kuna corona. Wallahi nakwambia, na hata njoo sasa nikupigie picha nikutumie. Watu hapa hivi niko Ferry. Mbona hawaja wailete tena laini za Ferry vile zinafungwa?
Kwa hivyo hakuna social distance.
Kuna kitu kielewi my sweetheart hapo hivyo mkonyote hapo. You lady help me. Kuna kitu umeongea na kimenipendeza sana. Ni kufunguliwe. Kila mtu atakikia, kwani ukimwi yuko? kuliletwe kondom na watu wengine pia wazitumii, si ni kweli?
Kweli.
Ukikosa kutumia kondom unakufa ama ukufi.
Ukipata
utakufa.
Ukipata usipochunga utakufa, lakini ukipata na pia uanze upimwe na uanze kupewa madawa utaishi.
Wacha nikwambie sisi wa Afrika, hata kuna Mwafrika akipata ukimwi anasema wacha nipake wenzangu because nilipakwa. Kwa hivyo mpaka next year atafunga shule mpaka 2030. That is what I want to know. Because corona iko kama ukimwi na iko kama TB. Mimi kuna shule mtoto wangu alikuwa na sitakutajia. Kuna mtoto alilipuka kitambo kidogo na TB. Na TB. Na TB ni mbaya sana kuliko corona nakwambia, because mimi tangu nizaliwe sijaiona corona na sitaiona. Because hapa Feri kama kungekuwa na corona watu hapa hivi wangekufa sasa kama half of them. Because msongamano yani tuko kabisa karibu, ni vile tu mimi niko kwa gari. Lakini ukiona wale wenzangu pale Urongo, corona mimi siko. Kwa hivyo ni president ya tufungulie watoto wetu waende. Watoto wameanza kukunywa drugs hapa hivi mtaani. Wengine wanaanza kuenda na wanaume na kuangalia. Sasa ikifika December itakuwa ni mimba ngapi hizo? Itakuwa ni drugs ngapi watu wameanza kuvuta hapa? Sasa corona ama drugs ama pregnancy? Niambie hapa.
Kweli. Asante Francesca. Thank you.
Tell president to open up. Na tupatie masharti ya mask, ya kuosha mikono kama ndio corona, tuoshe mikono kama kawaida na kama extra pia tupate.
Asante sana. 21 minutes to 10, 0719012600. What should the president tell us on Saturday? Let's take a look at traffic.
Okay, so it's still opening up on Thika Road, getting into the CBD. Not so bad now. It's looking a little bit better than it was previously. So we're out of traffic hour more or less, coming off Mombasa Road and getting into the city center. It should be fine now. We've passed the hour where it would have been terrible. So, okay, guys, it looks like the next hold of traffic would be later on this afternoon. But okay, for now, it looks good. Just in case, though, I'm going to leave you with that handle, and Spice FMKE on Twitter, in case you see somewhere where you are stuck, let us know. Or if you see an incident that we should share, let us know that too.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
What do you think? Should the president reopen the economy fully, like Francesca is saying? Should he reopen the economy in a calibrated manner, like others are saying? Should he actually not even reopen anything at all? Should we stay here until we can know what we are dealing with, assuming that we don't know what we are dealing with?
No, look, it's clear that it needs to open. People are, just for the fact that people are suffering, people need to get out and do the jobs that they would have to. And, it's interesting because a lot of the people that are at home are essentially the steering mechanism for this economy.
Yep.
Right? There are people who are getting things done, and because of that, the economy would kickstart and get moving.
It's the working class.
Yeah, it's the working class. The economy has come to a standstill, and people are suffering. There's no food. Okay. People are not able to purchase. We looked at it this morning. People are not able to pay their rent. So many things we're not able to do by virtue of the fact that people are at home, right? So introduce them back into the economy. Let them get it going. At the same time, I think that even with that, there are certain things that we must do to keep it careful. Because if we look at what has been happening, and we also say that decisions are fueled by data. The Camry has told us that there are 9 strains of corona. We're talking about Kenya, right? If we do things in a haphazard manner when it comes to now opening the economy, we are at a danger of spreading this thing with strains that we do not even know, that could come out and affect people with symptoms now, where we say that 80% of the population is asymptomatic. We could come out with something that now is symptomatic. We could come out with something that is going to affect people in a more virile manner, it's possible that could happen. So while we're saying open up the economy, it needs to be done in a very careful, deliberate, focused way. Otherwise, we might get ourselves into trouble. And this is something that needs to happen across.
Responsibility by the citizens.
Oh, for sure it does. And I hope that people will take it. Not just that, we used to say it's not like you ring the bell at 3:00 and let everybody out of the door. It needs to be done in a systematic way. Otherwise, we're going to be in a mess. And we have to accept that fact.
Mwalimu Irongo Amos in Kisii.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, freedom fighter.
This is not the freedom fighter.
This is not the freedom fighter.
The freedom fighter is Wajiro.
Oh, how are you?
We are well, thank you. Should the president reopen?
Well, I do not feel competent enough to say which sections of the economy should be opened first. But the truth is, if anything has to be opened, as you've just mentioned there, it should be gradual. But I am concerned about opening schools. Because that's what I feel I could talk about. I am a teacher.
Yep.
There is some sense in which people are thinking and making a very wrong comparison between children playing at home and in the neighborhood together, comparing that one to when they are in school. I think that's a very dangerous way to compare these two.
Why?
Because, children playing in the neighborhood only play with their friends.
Yeah.
So these children are not very many. And, they also know how to choose their friends.
Yeah.
But here, they also look at proper children in Nairobi, in the estates, where there could be probably a sizable number, about 10 or so. But it is not correct to compare that one to a classroom situation, a playground, where when it's break time, all of them will be allowed to want to play.
True.
So it's not the same as when you allow children to want to sleep in the dormitories at night. They pass through the same door, use the same toilet, do everything, then they sleep in the same dorm. You cannot control all of them.
Yeah.
The teacher is supposed to mark all the books. And if this teacher is passing COVID, because we are told you touch,
surfaces, yes.
And then another teacher is coming to touch the books of the other subjects, the children have touched them. I think we have to be very careful about talking about opening schools. Let it not be an experiment. That's my thinking.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a very good point. Thank you very much, Mwalimu Irongo.
Thank you, sir.
James in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I think just to pick up on a point that you brought, everyone is talking of what will the president do, what will the president do. But I think the question we should be asking ourselves is, what will I do myself? Because it comes to personal. People are saying open up the economy. The truth of the matter is nothing has stopped offices and businesses from working. They just can't work in the way that they normally used to do. And I think some people and maybe some employers are taking advantage of the situation and restructuring and laying off. So can we just shift the conversation to what will I do? We are wearing masks like chin hammocks. We are pushing, for lack of a better word, all these things. We have not seen the deaths in Italy and all that. We're thinking maybe the myth that corona is not here. It is here, and we have to learn. And like I say, there is no normal to go back to. Life changed on March 13th.
James, do you think that we have the discipline from what you've seen? I mean, from your neighborhood, from your friends, from your network, from social media, looking at what you receive. Are you feeling confident that there's going to be that discipline to observe these measures?
No, if adults cannot be able to wear a mask properly, you have had and you have done an excellent job in trying to teach people how to wear masks. If adults cannot do that, how the hell do you expect children to do that
this
in a classroom? if people are talking about they don't know what the effect of the curfew is. I mean, I went out one or two Saturday. I'm looking at grown-ups again.
Okay.
Sitting around doing the masks. It reaches 4 o'clock, everyone has to go. I'm shuddering to think at 11 p.m. What will they be doing? How will it be?
Yeah.
And once nightfall comes, who is going to check on whether you're wearing a mask or not? So curfew has worked. The cessation of movement has worked. Whether we can politic about it the whole day, but these measures have worked. The issues of pushing the schools, and I think what Professor Mago has said, it's excellent. It's not a life or death situation.
Yeah.
We just need to whatever that. The issue of the churches, fine. Again, go back to what I said. We are thinking of the main sanctuary. So do I tell him to go to church and leave my child at home so that they don't go to Sunday school? What happens to Sunday
what happens
school?
with that?
So let us have a holistic conversation, and I think the conversation should be, what will I do myself as James? What am I ready to do come Saturday?
Well, James, you know, what we see is that a lot of individuals are looking at this, at this like freedom, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You open the economy, now that means, okay, forget about COVID.
It's like the excitement
I can
of
now
closing
go,
day.
yeah, it's closing day. We can do everything that we were not able to do over the last 90 days now, suddenly we will be allowed to do. So this conversation about personal responsibility, I think, is pertinent to all of this, whereby, because for a lot of people, it's fantastic. The restaurants are opening at the same time that they're going to open up the economy. The bars are opening. I can run to the bar, whether it be a local whereby I can sit on a stool or whatever, as opposed to really understanding, look, folks, it doesn't mean because we're opening the economy that COVID has disappeared.
That is very true.
It is
it
still
will be
here.
Prison break. It will be prison break.
Yes.
It will be everyone Muguni Ponye. I am going to what I used to do on March the 12th. And it is not going to be there. So let us also start now turning the conversation in it's personal responsibility. Our president has said it a million times. It comes down to you. This disease, there is no patient in the world called government. You will never find government in a medical ward. You will never find government in an ICU. It is you, the individual, who ends up there. So let's start taking personal responsibility of the measures that we want to first do, so that when the government does whatever it's doing, there's a stimulus and a thing, and we do not have second waves and third waves, because they're going to come.
Yep.
Very good points, James, and thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you, James.
0719-012-600. We are asking, what do you expect to hear from the president on Saturday? I think, and I expect that he's going to repeat this, the same thing that he said on that first day. If we see an increase in the number of cases in this country, let us all remember, it is I, Uhuru, it could have been you, Matiang'i, it could have been you and the other person who did not follow the procedures that have been laid out by the experts. And the experts here are the medical professionals. They have said, look, the only way that we can reduce the transmission of this is by reducing the interactions, the human interactions between people. So even if we say that we are reopening the economy and we say, all right, people can go back to work, everybody who was going to work, consider yourself essential service, but then organizations should come up with measures to see how do we make this work. If an organization had 50 staff occupying a certain space, how do you reduce the number of people who are coming to work? Do they work in shifts? Do they work in alternate days or alternate weeks? How are you going to make this work? But if organizations are opening and they're also all desperate, feeling that we run out of our cash reserves, paying salaries, and we want people to come back to work, if the personal responsibility of the people who work in these companies do not work with their own management and say, look, we are prepared to do it this way.
Right. I'm
prepared to put in a shift at home, and then I can come tomorrow and be at work, and my colleague can go and work from home. This is a new normal.
It is.
But we've got to find ways of adjusting and living with it. I don't see, personally, from my own crystal ball, I don't see the cessation of movement within and outside Nairobi metropolitan being lifted.
No.
I think this will stay. I think the same will apply for Mombasa. I have a feeling that Kwale and Kilifi may be lifted because of looking at the numbers that we're now seeing in Kilifi and looking at the numbers that we're seeing in Kwale. That may be lifted. Yeah, but still the other measures, expected that the government will continue enforcing and trying to encourage people as much as possible to wash their hands, to sanitize, to observe distancing, to wear a mask while outdoors. Those will be the measures that will be expected to do. I don't see the curfew being lifted, I think the curfew will be reduced in terms of hours. Just like we were saying, maybe moving to 9 p.m. But then between 9 and 5 instead of 7 and 5, maybe. Establishments that work overnight will still not be able to operate.
I think so. I mean, just being fueled by, but I think, you know what?
It's got to be cautious,
what
but at the same time
really
saying
important here,
it is about you.
Yeah, but then to people, and for people to also understand and get it as per why this is being done, right? It's not so that you can frolic about for a few more hours. It really is not. Essentially, it's so that those who work at establishments, for example, whereby you need a few more hours to get things done, you can have some more hours, essentially to maybe bring a little bit more income, right?
Yep.
It's to say that if you are working at night, so that, and that's what your job entails, that you can have a few more hours to do that, to increase your income levels. It's to say that, okay, so that if you have to work a little bit later, to give some more time so that you can get back home without the fear of having to run about and run away from security officers. So this is the thing. It's really, again, it's not really about opening the gates and let everybody run about free, or to say that, all right, we didn't let you drink in a bar for 30 days. We're opening it up so that you can drink. It's not it. I think we, as individuals, as community, as society, we have to divorce ourselves from that mentality and to say that really we are still trying to make sure that COVID doesn't spread. At the same time, we understand how difficult it has been. What are the numbers that we're looking at today? 1 million have lost their jobs over Corona. To say that, okay, can we start to say that we can reduce that number from 1 million to 900,000?
Can we work together?
Can we work together on this thing? Because
These
Eric,
are
the
Kenyans.
people out here who are, it's not a joke.
Kenyans are
people
not going to work
for
together
food.
with the government. That is one thing I can tell you.
And now, but now,
from the first day,
to try and get us
from
to
the
that
very
point.
first day, the general who's in charge of this war, Mutahi Kagwe, has been saying, if we continue to treat this disease normally, it will treat us abnormally. How have people behaved?
There's no
it's
corona.
like they're not hearing him. In fact, they joke, they create memes. He comes and says, anybody can get it. You can get it, I can get it. What do?
Get it.
Yeah, they come up with songs. Yesterday, CAS Rashid Aman was talking about a video clip that was going around on social media about an establishment in Nairobi where over the weekend, this long weekend, people are clearly seen not observing social distancing, not wearing masks. The waiters and the people who are working in this establishment are not wearing PPEs. They're not wearing masks.
As of last week, a group of 15 people are still being arrested because they are sitting around, just hanging about, doing nothing.
Yep.
Playing music. So, I mean, what? I understand what you're saying.
People are back to inviting one another to come. We have lunch. Now we cannot go to these restaurants because they are closed
So come to my
house. Just come. We are going to order in. Or come, I'm going to make a meal for you. People are hosting house parties now. We are back to that point. Why? Because people are thinking, well, I'm going to do what I damn well please. And here is Mutahi Kagwe talking himself hoarse, saying this is about you taking personal responsibility. The president is going to tell us the same thing on Saturday. It's about you taking personal responsibility. How many people will see like personal responsibility and you belong in the same sentence?
In the same sentence. I think NERC is actually quite is a bit anxious also about, and we know that the office of the president, office of the executive right now,
the executive
office of the president is going to take considerations from the NERC when these announcements will be made on Saturday or thereabouts. But we also see the sentiment coming from them that they're a bit anxious about still the habits that they see Kenyans operating within. And I think that anxiety is going to aid in the decisions that are going to be made and announced on Saturday.
It will. There's also the National Command Center, the National Emergency Command Center for COVID-19 based in Embakasi, where all of these people are sitting, the ones who are enforcing all these measures. And I'm sure they're also sitting there wondering, okay, we have dealt with these people for 60 days.
We're showing you,
with
we're
the
telling
measures.
you. Yeah.
All right? With telling them clearly that if you come up to Blue Post and you pass Blue Post, you will not be able to go beyond Blue Post. But every week,
Monday and Friday. Monday and Friday.
We are turning people
when
back. When
there's a public holiday on a Monday, it's Tuesday.
Yeah. That's every week. We have seen that.
They don't get it.
They are not getting it. They are not getting it. These are the same people who say, all right, so every day we're telling people get indoors by 7 p.m., curfew starts. And at 7, police have had to engage in running battles with people telling them, get indoors. And people are like,
what's the problem?
What's your issue? Nina kusumbua. So it's a catch-22, but I think what you've said and what James was saying, it boils down to that. What am I prepared to do come the 7th of June 2020 to fight COVID-19? What am I prepared to do? What am I prepared to do to ensure that my family stays safe, that I stay safe, that I do not contract, I do not transmit COVID-19? What am I prepared to do to ensure that there's checks and balances with my friends and neighbors? Because also you have a responsibility to call and point out to your neighbor and tell them, no, what you're doing now is wrong. You are putting us all at risk. What am I prepared to do?
It's true. And again, it comes down to responsibility. It's interesting because somebody also said that, it was James who said the government of Kenya is not the one who's going to be in a ward.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the one who's going to be admitted in hospital. It will not be the government. It will be individuals. So, I mean, yes, the government has a responsibility and we keep calling them out where the responsibility lies in terms of what needs to be done, in terms of messaging and making sure that funds are being adequately used. But in terms of now, the worker bees in this, it's us. It's you and me.
The actual fight against COVID
is you and I.
Is you and I. Today's proverb, beautiful words don't put porridge in the pot. This is a proverb from Botswana. Beautiful words do not put porridge in the pot. Words without action are useless. They don't help anyone or anything. Always remember that. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room today, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Nduoko and Eric Latif signing off. Join us tomorrow morning for another show, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Tomorrow, we hope to speak to the CAS for Health. Dr. Rashid Aman will be talking about the fight against COVID, the measures that they've seen, the successes that they have seen so far. Also, the challenges that they are facing with acquiring and procuring testing kits and testing agents. Also, we'll be speaking to the U.S. ambassador to Kenya, who will be telling us what the U.S. is doing in helping Kenya and working with Kenya in the fight against COVID-19. But we must also steer somewhere towards what's happening in America right now.
Absolutely.
In their own fight against COVID-19 and in their own fight against racism. So join us tomorrow. It's going to be a jam-packed one. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.